Happy Saturday, SMITE fans, and welcome into Promotion Saturday. We had an elimination day yesterday on Friday, sent 4 SEC teams home just because of those matchups. Today, we have got 4 SPL versus SPL matchups, all of these to promote one of the SPL squads moving forward. But of course, we can't do this alone. We've got our friends at Prime helping us out this year here in Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League, and as well as helping us out here at SMITE Summer Masters. Remember, you get something new every single month with Prime Gaming. Free games every month, free in-game content, including for SMITE and Paladins, as well as free Twitch subscriptions to your favorite streamers, free delivery, and so much more. So thanks again to Prime for being with us here in Season 9 of the SMITE Pro League and here at SMITE Summer Masters. And the tournament continues. My name is Dolson. Spooky joins me to start off the day on the desk. Spooky, finally got our game 3 yesterday. It was you and I on the cast. We had a cursed casting match pair up to this point. Lots of lopsided games. Finally got our game 3. The question is, now we get the SPL versus SPL matchups. Do you think we're poised for another game 3 here today?
Listen, I've been telling Dimes all day, this is going to be a 3-game set to lead us off, all right?
You think?
Yeah, no one believes me, all right? It's the Valks and the Kings, and it looks like it's an underdog matchup, right? The Valks, surely they have no chance. I don't believe it. They've been looking so much stronger recently. I think we're going to see some surprising play from them today.
All right, Spooky. We'll sink our teeth into that here in a minute, because I think you got a point to defend there for sure. The Valhalla Valkyries, the Camelot Kings lead us off, followed by the Bolts and the Scarabs. Jade Dragons, Oni Warriors, Leviathans versus Titans to end the day. So my goodness, some SPL versus SPL matchups. And remember, none of these teams being sent home, but the winner of these sets guaranteeing their spot next week. Remember, next week everything simplifies. You just straight up single elimination bracket in the second week of SMITE Masters. So a lot of matches that I'm excited for today. Jade Dragons, Oni Warriors really stands out to me. And then a Worlds rematch between the Leviathans and the Titans. Here's a look at Group A. Camelot Kings and the Valks won both of their starter matches against the SEC squads. The Eldritch Hounds yesterday knocked out the Gilded Gladiators, moved themselves to match number 18, also a best of 3. And so it's super simple now in this group. The Kings win, they advance to next week. The Valkyries win, they advance to next week. Loser will face off against the Eldritch Hounds for the one final spot out of this group. So Group A has been really exciting to watch here, Spooky. And I will give you your opportunity to defend the Valhalla Valkyries. I think we should talk about the Kings first, though. I mean, this is a squad coming out of the SPL who is top seed. Top seed for a reason. They play one of the most consistent brands of SMITE we have seen all year long. Their macro game, near unstoppable. But they nearly fell to one of our SEC squads. And we'll get to talk about the Kings here in a little bit. The Valhalla Valkyries, though, on the flip side, are a team that have started building up some momentum, because the start of Phase 2, not the strongest look for the Valhalla Valkyries. But Spooky, you seem to think that this is a squad that might be able to find themselves an upset here over the Kings.
Listen, it's all about momentum, and right now the Valkyries have a lot more momentum going for them than they did earlier in the season. They found themselves a couple of wins. They looked really good in their matches against the SEC, which I know may not be saying the most about these SPL squads. But you look at the Kings, they struggled a little bit. The Valkyries, they're looking confident. They're looking like they're perfectly at home. BennyQ has really been shining recently. I mean, you just cannot put anything past them. They've been on the rise. I think they're going to continue that rise.
Yeah, BennyQ has led this AMC. The Morgans looked good for him. Also has played the Discordia. And I think that shows some signs of maturity, not only for BennyQ, but for this Valkyrie squad, where when the Valks joined the league, we were like, all right, what's BennyQ going to play week in and week out, right? I mean, this guy's just going to throw the meta out the window and play his own style of picks. Has been some of that when the Valkyries have needed it, but when they've looked their best, it has been some maybe slightly off meta picks, but still picks that are expected to be played in the mid lane, and BennyQ and the Valhalla Valkyries have looked good for it. And I think I agree with your assessment, not only of on-field play, but mental, right? I mean, that's got to be half the game for this Valkyries team. When you go so long without finding consistent wins, all right, you start to build up some wins, some momentum. Your team looks good. You start off with a pretty clean 2-0 to begin your week. I think it's a great look for the Valhalla Valkyries. So outside of BennyQ, who do you think needs to step up here for the Valkyries today? Aquarius, Kyrmi, Gamma, Wowy. The rest of them have looked good as well. Is there one part of the map you look towards outside of the mid lane?
I mean, you got to be very careful in that duo lane, especially. You're going against Netrioid over there. You never can discount Netrioid. This guy has been showing up consistently from, Sanguine to now. Netrioid has always looked like a really good ADC. So make sure Wowy's not too uncomfortable over there, but you got Gamma there with him, right?
Yep.
You have the comfort there. You have the tools to facilitate your success.
Yeah, Gamma's been looking great recently. Wowy's been looking good as well. The duo lane needs to be on point with their play on field, and the Valkyries in general need to be on point with their answers because Mifflin's standing by with them for a pregame interview.
That's right, Dave. I have got the Valkyries here against their will, actually. They told me they didn't want to talk to me, and I told them tough. So we're going to start with Aqua. I've been saying that you're like one of the coolest dudes on the planet. How does that hit your ear? Do you agree?
However people see it, sure.
And that's why I think he's one of the coolest dudes on the planet. Kyrmi, you told me in confidence once that you considered Wowy one of the least helped ADCs in the league. Is that still true?
Yeah, 100%.
And whose fault is that?
Mine.
And how are you going to change that?
I'm not.
Understood. Wowy's so good that he can be trusted to hold his own in the lane. Benny, Kyrmi, distracted helping you, man. What's up with that? Why are you taking up so much of his time?
He helps me? Wait, really?
All right, who are you helping then, Kyrmi?
No, I'm helping Ben. He's just delusional.
Jungle diff.
Jungle Chasm, in fact, according to Ben. Gamma, I held you at yeah, well, essentially, yeah. How did that feel, man? Were you worried at all for your life when I had that little tiny musket?
Scared, terrified, all those kind of words, you know.
I was just trying to simulate what it would be like, lining up against the Kings. Were you like ready for it?
You know, I feel like now I am. Okay. So I guess I have you to thank if I win today, huh?
You're welcome. That's the Valkyries. I would ask Wowy some stuff, but he's like complaining about some high contrast on his screen. It's too good, so we'll get him later.
So no help from Kyrmi, but help from Mifflin, I guess, to get the Valkyries mentally prepared for their matches today. Look, obviously a joking interview, but that is a team that is in high spirits, I think have high expectations for themselves. Also realizing that even if this match goes sideways against the Camelot Kings, which the Valkyries themselves probably don't think will happen, but if it does, you get a second chance. You're going to end up going against an SEC squad in the Eldritch Hounds later on in this bracket anyway. That is also the case for the Camelot Kings. Now, the Camelot Kings, Spooky, out of the two teams here in this group, the Kings arguably looked worse against their SEC opponent, at least in game number 1. Game number 2 was pretty clean from the Kings. But game number 1, I think the Kings caught a bit off guard, cleaned things up, now have all 5 of their players back in studio, back in booth. Still the team to beat, I think, in this tournament, just based on their Phase 2 play in the SPL.
Oh, certainly. Definitely the team to beat. By no means do I think this is going to be easy for the Valkyries in any way, shape, or form. You can pick any member of this King squad, and probably he has his own highlight reel. Yep. BigManTingz has been showing up massively throughout this entire set. Well, but week, I should say. Variety, always consistent solo laner. We've already talked about Netrioid, but I really want to highlight CaptainTwig, right? He's constantly playing these facilitator-style picks. He said he wants to branch out a little bit more. Didn't work out so well against the Gladiators, but there's nothing to be too concerned about because at the end of the day, the Kings were able to step back, take one victory in a team fight, and they just push it all the way. That's
right, and Twig has been great at facilitating BigManTingz out of the mid lane. I mean, look at his last 2 games worth of KDAs. Tingz is 9-0-9 on the E set, 6-3-7 on the Uller, and that was just in the one matchup against the Gilded Gladiators. Been playing a lot of Discordia recently. He loves the control mages over in mid. This team is just on a win streak right now. It's won 6+ straight individual games and 3 straight plus individual sets as well. I mean, such a hard team to beat down, right? Because I think what we've learned about the Kings is not only is their macro game on point, not only can they play the 2 kills in 20 minute style of games, but the Kings rally around their mid laner more often than not, and they can scrap early on in the game. They can hand feed kills over to BigManTingz, and he's the type that'll help move this team forward in the kill department. And so I look at Tingz and how important it might be for him to be back in studio, right? I mean, he's been playing on ping for a little while, now back with his team for this event. You think that's a boost to the Camelot Kings, have their mid laner back with them in the booth? If nothing else, I think it's a boost to the morale, just the mental game there. Because it's one thing to have your mid laner putting up great performances and he's halfway across the country, he's in a different continent, whatever. It's another thing entirely to have that physical presence there. You get to talk to him face to face, joke around.
and you have that reliability right next to you sitting there. So it might not change the gameplay itself, but just the mental game, I think, changes so much having the full team present.
Which is actually very impressive for BigManTingz. I mean, playing from Ping and feeling like the quality of gameplay hasn't decreased, very, very impressive for this Camelot Kings team. The last time these two teams matched up, a little bit of drama between the squads, but the Camelot Kings were able to take the 2-0 over the Valhalla Valkyries during the second matchup in Phase 2. And I imagine we'll be feeling confident here. You'd love to just go ahead, dust your hands off of the first week of SMITE Masters, start mentally prepping for the second week of SMITE Masters. And that's always been the conversation around this Kings team, has been they dominate during the regular phase, during the week in, week out, round-robin type play. Will they show up come tournament time? We have seen the one set, little shaky in Game 1, dusted that off, looked good in Game 2. And so I think the onus on the Camelot Kings to really step up throughout the rest of this weekend. So let's talk some individual matchups here. Kings versus Valhalla Valkyries. We've discussed the mid lane. BennyQ versus BigManTingz. Of course, going to be maybe the highlight matchup here. But I look at Kyrmi and Twig in the jungle. You highlighted CaptainTwig, I think so important to the Kings. Although joking in the pregame interview, I think Kyrmi's been a very important asset to this Valhalla Valkyries team.
Most definitely. Kyrmi is one of those guys who likes to exert some early pressure. He likes to get active. You can see the last picks he's been playing, he has a lot of Osiris in there. And Osiris is one of the jungle gods that scream, I want to run at you from minute 1. I'm going to clear my speed buff. We're going to clear the next buff, and we're just going to run straight at the enemy. We're going to see what we can make happen. Also seeing some Daji in there. I don't expect Kyrmi to be able to get back on that Daji just because it's such a potent pick.
Yep.
But if they're not accounting for that, if the Kings let that slide through, 100% that's something that Kyrmi goes straight for. I think that could really cause some problems in that jungle matchup.
Yeah, I think Osiris is going to be important between these two as well. Kyrmi's loved Osiris. And Twig has actually been pretty flexible. You look at Twig's last 6 games played. Naja, that's out of nowhere, but it was a win, a 1-2-16 Naja performance. And then Ratatoskr, Osiris, another Naja game. Ratatoskr, Nemesis have been a bit more flexible, where it's felt like Kyrmi has really spearheaded the Osiris efforts for this squad. Osiris has felt good for the Valhalla Valkyries. Remember, they got a 2-0 win over the Atlantis Leviathans to end their phase, the Valkyries phase. Both of those games on Osiris for Kyrmi. And again, I don't want to glean too much from that pregame interview. Obviously, a bit joking, having some fun prior to this set kicking off. But talking about Wowy and the quote is being the least helped ADC in the league, do you think Kyrmi needs to put some emphasis on the dual lane here in this set? Do you think Kyrmi needs to find a way to get some pressure over towards Wowy, help out in that matchup against Netrioid on the other side?
I would say not in the first game. In the first game, you're just playing your game plan. You do what you want to do. And Wowy, I think, has shown that he is a consistent enough laner. He's safe enough that he can hold his own in those lanes. Sure, he's going against Netrioid, one of the arguably best ADCs in the league right now. But it's Wowy, man. He knows what he's up against. He's a smart player. He's going to hang back if he doesn't think he can take that 1v1, even though Netrioid is one of those players that really likes to seek that 1v1 out. I think the positioning is going to be just fine. Now, if things don't go super well in game number 1, then you can start talking about changing your game plan in game number 2.
Well, Spooky, you talked about getting Wowy on something comfortable, and picks and pans for game 1 is exactly where that will happen. Valks in first pick. Camelot Kings drop over with a couple answers back after the Valks make their first selection. And so we kick off our promotion Saturday, is what I'll dub it here. The team that wins this set will move on to the second week of SMITE Masters guaranteed. The team that loses this set will have to play the Eldritch Hounds in a dual promotion/knockout match, and that'll happen tomorrow. So Cabrakan ends up getting taken away. Cabrakan's been such an interesting pick over the last few weeks. Seen it in mid for the Leviathans a couple of times, seen it solo lane once or twice, jungle, support. Basically everywhere but ADC, and I think it should remain that way.
I can see the change.
Cabrakan ADC,
yeah,
just full attack speed, wailing away. Yeah, that'd feel great, I'm sure. Well, the Kings aren't going to face it this game, to say the least. It'll get taken away. And then probably a smart ban from the Valkyries here, taking Daji off the table. Because Daji has felt very plug-and-play, whether it's Valks, Kings, any of the other 6 teams in the SPL. Daji has been a force to deal with in the jungle.
Yeah, this Cupid ban leaves a couple things up here. I would expect the Valkyries to look for Chernobog, but actually it's the Xing Tian that gets first picked there. So Valkyries
Surprise
putting
you?
some... That does surprise me. They're putting some heavy priority on this Xing Chen with some very good picks still up on the board. Now, I grant you, Xing Chen does play fairly well into the Chernobog if the Kings do decide to look for that. Chernobog has just been one of those most highly picked gods in the game right now. Has a great win rate, has great utility. But the Xing Chen, he does have that Furious Roar that reduces basic attack damage, so it's a nice little counter pick if the Kings decide to go for that Cherno first pick. But with the Cupid banned out, I mean, you're starting to have to go a little bit deeper into that ADC pool now.
Yeah, depending on where Wowy wants to go. That said, Wowy has been flexible. And again, I want to put some praise on Wowy because at the beginning of the year, it did not look good over in the duo lane. There was just no kill pressure rolling for this squad. There were multiple series of games where Wowy just wasn't getting kills straight up, was just getting blanked in the kill department. Hasn't happened recently at all. In the set against the Leviathans, Wowy really stepped up. And Wowy has only repeated one god in the last 6 games, and it's been Cupid a couple of times. So there is still flexibility for the Valks duo lane, as I imagine the Xing Chen will go to Gamma. Chiron plus Nemesis for the Camelot Kings. Chiron has been on the flip side of flexibility. Netrioid a very flexible ADC, but has loved this Chiron pick. Been a lot of Chiron from Netrioid when it hasn't been banned out, and then the Nemesis for Twig seems to be pretty standard for the jungler as well.
Yeah, this is already a really good top 2. Netrioids look super comfortable on this Chiron. And then I think the Chiron is even a really smart first pick here because it has flexibility.
Yeah.
Sure, it can go to Netrioid over there in the dual lane, but they could also just slap it over into the mid lane, put it onto BMT. He's had a couple performances on it as well, which have not looked half bad. But this Nemesis, man, that's just a classic pick. If your enemy is going to first pick a tank, you can feel pretty comfortable locking in this Nemesis, knowing what it's going to go against. Now, Xing Chen does have the tools to mitigate the Nemesis shield, but most of the time I think CaptainTwig is going to be dropping an ult probably on Gamma and then just moving to a backliner.
Yeah, right. I mean, shred away some of those protections and then deal the damage elsewhere, and Twig really good at balancing that out. Okay, so a Serqet lock-in. 1 game played this weekend, 1 win this weekend, plus an AMC. I would say Xing Chen AMC, standard as it gets and a couple good looks. Serqet has not seen the highest number of games played here as of late, but 100% win rate in the 1 game we've seen.
Khepri is the response there. Dave, I'm going to tell you what I want to see. I want to see Xing Chen going over into the solo lane. I want to see Serqet support here, AMC in the mid.
Why do you want to see Serqet support?
I just think it'd be really cool. That's really the only
That's what
reason.
you want to see, right?
That's what I'd like to see.
Does that make, would you say strategically that also makes some sense? Do you think there's a world where that would?
No, I definitely don't think it does. The best thing I could say is it has 100% anti-heal for Chiron's passive healing. That's really not enough healing to be really worried about. It would, be good at putting this Khepri out of position. Not a whole lot of mobility. It's easy to body block his 1 movement ability. And the really cool thing about that is that if you block his movement ability as he's trying to escape, then he pushes himself back into danger just with the natural movement.
Right.
I don't think we will see it. I think the Serqet is definitely more comfortable going to Kyrmi in the jungle, and he can still do pretty much that exact same thing without being locked down to a lane and having to kind of limit what he builds. But into the second wave of bans, it's the Morgan and Soul first taken away, and I really like those. The Soul is not one we normally see a whole lot, but because of this AMC probably going to BennyQ in the mid lane, the Valks have a little bit of a lack of magical damage right now. So the Kings take away this magical ADC. There's still a couple up right now, but Soul's probably one of the safest ones in the books right now. So they're just making it a little bit riskier for the Valks.
Yeah, a bunch of things to note here as far as stats go. Yes, AMC likely to BennyQ. BennyQ's played it in 50% of his last 6 games. Also, the Serqet, the 1 game played so far during SMITE Masters, was Kyrmi in the jungle against the Eldritch Hounds in their first round matchup in this group. Went 3-1-9 on Serqet jungle. And so I think likely to Kyrmi.
My
looking for
steed
the
and I are
second
ready
win
for
on
yet
Serqet this
another
event
adventure.
for Kyrmi and just Serqet in general. And then Lancelot ends up getting left open to the second wave of bans. Now, we have heard a lot about Lancelot in just how strong it is and how difficult it is to deal with. Sometimes you would think support. We have seen maybe the most overwhelming Lancelot games out of the solo lane, and it's been Variety specifically. Against the Oni Warriors, Variety goes 9-1-7 on Lancelot solo, and then 6-1-7 against the Bolts and Haddocks in the solo lane on Lancelot solo. I think the Kings have gotten themselves one of their favorite solo lane picks here with Lancelot pretty far down in the draft.
Yeah, I'm actually really surprised that Lancelot gets through this far. I mean, this is a 4th pick after the second wave of bans come through. And Variety, like you said, he's been tearing it up on this pick throughout pretty much since Lancelot became competitively allowed. He's just looked really, really solid. He has tons of pressure. He has tons of kill potential in that lane. And the fact that he takes less damage from the front due to that shield passive, it just makes it so hard to take those trades with him.
Yeah.
Add on to that pseudo CC immunity while he's mounted on the horse. The only thing that's going to affect him is those stuns and the ability to rotate very quickly from that solo lane if he does find a lead. The Valks could be in a little bit of trouble there.
Yeah, I am very nervous when I see a Lancelot lock-in, especially when it's Variety who's playing it. Chang'e has been played once this event and one loss, so hasn't quite hit pay dirt yet, but this is something that the Valhalla Valkyries have played in the solo lane in the past, and so that'll likely be Aquarius's pick. One loss against the Tartarus Titans, but then a win in the 2-0 win against the Atlantis Leviathans, plus a Xbalanque to finish out the draft. So you get some of that magical damage with the Chang'e over in the solo lane. Is it enough, though, is the question. Do you think Aquarius will be doing enough on this pick to diversify out that damage a bit?
I think it's a very good pick. It has a lot of safety, especially against this Lancelot. Chang'e is one of those guys who has a really good ability to just kite backwards and avoid a lot of damage that's coming out from your enemy laner. The Moonlight Waltz is a really good tool to avoid some of the damage that will be coming out from Variety on this Lancelot. If he can immune, even just the ultimate is already good enough to just avoid a big chunk of damage. But Chang'e also has great sustain. She has the ability to constantly poke this Lancelot out and sustain up with the passive healing, the ability to not have to go back to base due to her passive bunny, just running back, grab an item, bring it back to the lane. Right now, Aquarius has just the ability to stay local in this lane and not allow Variety the ability to rotate out with that mounted ability. He's going to keep him, she's going to try to keep him locked down and not let him impact the map too much. And Waxy Moon will get him off that horse if he needs to.
Worth mentioning that the core three here, the Chang'e, the AMC, the Xbalanque, all three of these were played against the Atlantis Leviathans in the game 2 win that the Valhalla Valkyries had played. But instead of Serqet Xing for Kyrmi and Gamma, it was Osiris Cabrakan in that composition. So this core 3 damaging trio is something the Valhalla Valkyries have not only played, but they've made work against the defending world champions. And to answer my own question, in that game, Warlock Staff, Voidstone, Breastplate of Valor, Divine Ruin, and Staff of Mirrodin from Aquarius. So there was a damaging type build coming out of the solo lane there to provide some magical damage. On the flip side, let's look at the Camelot Kings, Spooky, and their pacing of game. When do you want to see CaptainTwig get active? When do you think that this team is at their best?
I mean, this is a team that can really scale throughout the game, right? In the early game, you've got Nemesis, Lancelot, Chiron. You're going to be able to be very, very active. But you also have a Freya over there as well. That's a character that just scales incredibly hard with items. So I'd like to see the Kings maybe just get active with this, wherever this Chiron is going, whether it's in the duo lane or in the mid lane, play around that early on, allow Variety to make some plays on this Lancelot, put some focus over on that right side. And then as the game goes on, just make sure that your Freya is able to scale up. And if they hit that point, which we know the Kings love to do, we know they like taking these long games, that's where things are going to get real bad for the Valks.
Yeah, who are we kidding? It's going to be a 20-minute game with 1 kill, and the Kings are going to somehow be 9,000 gold ahead. It's just, as is standard. We'll see if the Valhalla Valkyries can break that trend. Game number 1, J-Mac and Mifflin. Good morning.
Good morning to you too, Dave and Spooky over on the desk. We're here on day number 4 of our event on this Saturday morning, and it's all going to be SPL today, and it's all going to be promotional matches. So, one team from every single...
Let me get that straight. All promos, no elims?
No elims today.
Wow.
All promos today, Mifflin.
Just positivity and hope for everybody. Wow,
well,
must be cool.
See, we kind of have like an elimination sandwich going on. Like yesterday, we eliminated teams. That's the
awesome.
The bottom layer of bread. Today's kind of the meat, where we're sending 4 teams up, and then tomorrow is the cheese and other slice of bread of the sandwich, where we send some up to the second week, and then we send the other group home.
That's a good analogy. I'm with that. Is the cheese promotion, or is that
the cheese is
more
the promotion,
elimination?
the bread is the other elimination.
Okay, cool.
Because we eliminate, then we get the meat of promotion, the cheese promotion, and then the bread is the other elimination.
Understood. Kind of a whack sandwich, though. Like, I'd like some veg in there.
Well, it can be cheese and veggie. It can kind of be a mixture. Like one is your slice of cheese, one is like your lettuce, the other one's like your condiments that you throw in there, like your your mustard or your mayo.
Making
or
a lot of
whatever it may be.
assumptions about my sandwich right now, man.
I don't know what you get in your sandwich, Myth, but we're in game number 1 between the Valkyries and the Camelot Kings. Dual lane pressure immediately going over to Netrioid and Genetics, but as nature is, with this Freya, we haven't been seeing her as much after her recent rise, but we are seeing a small 2v2 skirmish where the Camelot Kings want to bring this fight over to Aquarius. Kyrmi is sitting by to the edge of the jungle at the very least, but this has been where the majority of these early game skirmishes have been going, has been that right side of the map. And again, this pressure out of Freya, this pressure onto Kyrmi right now is one that the Valkyries just cannot handle yet.
Yeah, I'm thinking the Camelot Kings are likely going to control that dual lanes pressure for at least another level or so until we see some regen for Wowy. Going to take a little while to sustain back up, but seems like Wowy is privy to it. Has gone multi-pots and health potions plus sustain in the build with that cowl start. Generally, it's Death Toll for Xbalanque, so we can just get the free bola, but seems like he's not too concerned. Maybe he should be, considering I don't think I've seen him over about 15% HP since we've loaded in.
Every time we do peek back over, it's Wowy dashing away under the tier 1 tower because he's just getting out-pressured and out-poked by Genetics and Netrioid on this Khepri Freya. And for the Freya, it is the Conduit gem, which was kind of the popular pickup for a while. We'd seen with some of these magical hunters kind of a back and forth between things like Gilded Arrow or Death Toll or Mannequin Scepter, but it seems that at least with Freya, this has kind of been the dialed-in go-to starter.
Just make sure clear on waves so much stronger, your initial poke so much stronger as well. Very often we see Freya struggle to apply consistent damage. It's more so, hey, I whooped you, I landed my one auto attack, and then you used your leap to get away. So that one auto attack is so much more valuable now with Conduit Gem. Blue buff's traded between these two teams. Invade two-man stack of Kyrmi and Aqua, able to strip away theirs, whereas CaptainTwig solos out the blue buff of the enemy team for himself. Only loser in that situation, probably just Variety, who doesn't get any extra farm.
No, he just has to sit back and wait until something else comes back, wait until he has an opportunity to go back to base. Meanwhile, Aquarius, as highlighted by the death, kind of just sit in this lane for as long as he doesn't get too poked out, as long as he doesn't get nearly killed during an engagement, just because he can send that rabbit back home to the base, pick up some potions, pick up some items, not really have to worry about too much of what Variety is going to be able to do on this Lancelot. But if there's any player that I would worry about playing a Lancelot and the kind of performance that they've had, it would be Variety. I mean, this man went like 6-1 on his debut performance on it, and then had like a 9-something game after. Keep your eyes on Variety in this lane.
Yeah, I'm not sure about in the lane. Up against Chang'e, right? Like, it's so easy for her to survive some of those initiations. I'm keeping my eyes on Variety in 17 minutes when he leaves and gets involved in the fight. Otherwise, whenever he does decide to leave. Because that damage output, the chase down potential, specifically onto both Wowy and BennyQ, gonna find a good deal of value. Variety's got really, really strong gap close on the Lancelot, and BennyQ just really doesn't have any way to deal with that outside of winning a DPS trade. And up against a Soul Leader Lancelot who is likely physical defense stacked up, those are hard DPS trades to win. Otherwise, for the Valhalla Valkyries, I think Kyrmi's in a good position and has some pretty decent targets. Back in the day when Serqet jungle was a bit more standard and Freya was still in the meta, Serqet was the answer. You can save that Valkyrie's discretion to walk yourself out of there. Doesn't really matter if you're taking constant true damage.
Kyrmi goes in, aggressive on CaptainTwig. No level 5 for the Nemesis yet. No level 5 for Genetics either, but in a 3v2, ultimate by Kyrmi. Some good poke on a CaptainTwig, but Kyrmi getting poked out even more. One more hit from anybody would take him down, but Kyrmi is able to wiggle on out of the fight, lives with a sliver of HP. And the Valhalla Valkyries not quite coming up with their first death or first blood.
I mean, that was a crazy initiation from Kyrmi to go back in with that ultimate. I suppose realizing that Genetics hadn't had that Scarab's Blessing just yet, he wanted to make sure he found some value, but even in going aggressive there, CaptainTwig had waited so patiently to use his shield that you gotta think the DPS just wouldn't be there. Kyrmi, though, does make his way out of there with just a sliver of HP, slows down some of that farm from Twig, forces the rotation from BigManTingz. So even in not getting the kill, you're at least distracting the Camelot Kings for just a moment. And when the Kings are distracted, they're at least not farming. And that's massive considering how good they are at farming.
So far, that farm game has gone toward the Valkyries. Just slightly. 300 gold and basically nothing as far as XP is concerned at this point there. But getting any kind of slight lead off of essentially nothing. Not, you know, getting farm whenever you can't get a kill, but at least get a TKO in a sense. It's going to be good for the Valkyries. And that's been the most impressive kind of glow up for this team as of recent, Myth. I mean, these were guys who were struggling to find anything. They would get 4 or 5 kills in the early game, but no farm with that one. And all of a sudden, we're watching matchups like the Leviathans and the Oni Warriors where the Valks are up 6,000–7,000 gold by 10 minutes in when we're looking at like 2 kills.
Yeah, the Valkyries almost overnight have really, really found their pacing throughout the early portions of the match. It used to be only that early game aggression, but recently have been able to find that farm. Just really good on the neutral objective. It's similar to the Camelot Kings in that they really emphasize going for the obelisk. They like stacking that up as quickly as possible, reflected on the map as of now. Slightly ahead of the Camelot Kings in offerings. I imagine we see these two start to scrap over those offerings pretty shortly, or at least the Greater Scorpions, because the Camelot Kings aren't ones to just allow the farm to go to the other side. They really are very willing to group up as 3, group up as 4 if they have to, and fight over these smaller objectives on the map. When I say smaller, I'm not talking about like the gold or the pyro when you're compared to the fire giant. I'm talking like the small ones. I'm talking like those little invisibility fields on the map, the Greater Scorpions, the mid camps, things like that. The Camelot Kings are generally willing to scrap over.
You see a very small XP difference, at least in this mid lane, where BigManTingz has been getting about a level up consistently. I feel like this is what's going to happen every time we peek over towards the dual lane, at least for this first early 15 or so minutes. As soon as Netrioid wants to get aggressive, Wowy can just press that Rising Jaguar, get himself out of there. Just ignore anything that Netrioid would try and throw his way, because when Netrioid's gone for first item, Myth, hasten ring rush right away.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that's about standard on Freya. It just really does boost your kill potential, but going for the ring style of build means that, sure, you can Rising Jaguar after Whoop. Netrioid's just going to be faster eventually. With all the movement speed infusions he gets from the ring tree, maybe we hit an inflection point eventually where Wowy Rising Jaguars away and Netrioid's still there, right on top of him. Or if he's able to connect the damage first, Netrioid, that is, can save Whoop until afterward. We saw it in that small exchange. Wowy takes 1 auto attack from the pulse and says, I'm done here.
Kyrmi goes aggressive onto Genetics, uses an ultimate very early.
Good lord.
And instantly, Kyrmi's going to be able to break from the Abduct, but the damage from CaptainTwig and from Netrioid is just too much. Kyrmi falls for first blood. Wowy and Gamma can't do much aside from watch their jungler go down.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to walk into a Freya right now. That damage output already ridiculous. I believe that was 179 damage per auto attack on a Kyrmi. Kyrmi's sitting at like 1100 HP, if memory serves. It's been a while since I've seen a level 7 Serqet's HP pool, but I would say 1106.
Pretty good.
Yeah,
honestly,
like what is that, like 8 auto attacks?
No.
Good luck. Don't walk up on that, man. I know that we were talking in the interview a little bit earlier on how goofy it is. The Kyrmi saying, you know, Wowy doesn't get a whole lot of help, and he's not going to rotate over towards that lane. This is a matchup where I'm thinking to myself, yeah, do that. Don't help Wowy. He's got to figure this one out on his own, because you really don't want to walk into a Freya as Serqet. Because you have to get single target. When you use that ultimate, if you're not hitting the Freya herself, she's returning damage to you so quickly. And with the Xbalanque, the damage follow-up isn't exactly the strongest. It's not a standard ability hunter. I think Kyrmi would be much better served helping BennyQ with this AMC. Land your taunt onto BigManTingz, stinger immediately afterward. Dude's probably just dead. Land your taunt on the Netrioid, you get a poison dart from Wowy. It's all right. It's not a stinger.
It's definitely no stinger. Being hit by the 2 is essentially night and day difference. And for now, the Camelot Kings, with their first blood, have only tied up the gold because the Valhalla Valkyries were the ones who had that lead all the way up until that point, as it was kind of teetering above 500. Fight over the Greater Scorpion breaks out. We've got 4 of the Camelot Kings nearby. Stinger thrown onto Variety, instant ultimate out. And a Centaurus by BigManTingz to throw out to a couple of players as well. Kyrmi poked fairly low, but Pyro respawning. I thought maybe we would see teams stick around to try and fight for the objective, but at least for now, there'll be a return to the lanes to get some farm for the mid laner.
It's exactly what I was talking about earlier. The Camelot Kings really do put a lot of respect onto these Greater Scorpions. 4-man stack to strip away and then to clear out their own. And when you've got this much presence on the right-hand side of the map, it creates space for Netrioid to make plays exactly like that. He doesn't need to concern himself with a counter rotation because the Camelot Kings had vision on the entirety of the Valhalla Valkyries. They were chasing him out. So what does Netrioid do? Walks up on the purple, puts some damage into Wowy, and then resets himself. And then you could see it even there. Netrioid says, I'm done. There's nothing much for me to fight over here. We don't have any vision on the Valkyries anymore. They could be rotating towards me. So he allows Wowy to clear out that wave, and then drags it to his own tower and clears it there. Just very disciplined play so far from the Camelot Kings.
It's something that we've come to kind of expect with a team like this, to play this very cautionary style of gameplay where they're not trying to force any major fights, they're not trying to go for any kind of wacky picks. It's, hey, we want this objective, we're going to walk up to it, and you're going to walk over here and deal with it, or we're going to grab it, just like this, where the Pyromancer is started up by the Kings. Gamma and Kyrmi are here to try and stop this one. Not an insane amount of steal potential. The Camelot Kings do grab the Pyromancer. Maybe they can grab a kill. Variety low. Gamma gonna go with the ultimate, only picks up one. Variety will stake on by. Genetics though, hit by the Stinger, will have ducked back towards his team. With that Scare's Blessing, has the extra movement speed to get out. Slowed down by Gamma.
Cleanse.
But the cleanse by BigManTingz makes sure that the support gets out.
Valhalla Valkyries still nearby. Netrioid has made the rotation, but not much to fight over anymore. Valkyries nearly have that chase down potential. That horrific emblem, I suppose, a bit wishful thinking with BigManTingz so close nearby, but the Camelot Kings yet again, like bandits in the night, find their one small win. Earlier it was the Greater Scorpion, this time the Pyromancer. Disengage, and if there's nothing to fight over, the Kings aren't going to fight you. It's as simple as that. They aren't here to get kills. They are one of the teams in the league that seem to just fully comprehend that kill column looks cool, makes you awesome for fantasy points, but at the end of the day, it's all about the golden experience.
Try to get some golds, maybe a kill if Netrioid can land a few of those autos, but it's not going to find anything there. A little skirmish over the purple buff, but Genetics and Netrioid realizing that it's probably not worth losing their lives over in case the rotation was on its way. Camelot Kings, after picking up that Pyromancer, set themselves about a 1,300 or so gold lead over the Valkyries. That experience, at least in most of the lanes, has kind of evened itself out. Really, the only lead that we still see, even from the early game, is Variety on this Lancelot.
And Variety's already made a couple of pretty impactful rotations towards that Pyromancer, absorbing the Stinger from BennyQ. Very valuable, considering that he's just about the only one on his team who can just disengage immediately afterward, regardless of that cripple. But the lead established so far, not so massive that I think the Valhalla Valkyries need to start ringing alarm bells. They're still in a good position to take team fights. Their composition very strong in the 5-on-5.
Gamma ult, picks up Genetics. Stinger lands instantly, and this should be a kill on the Khepri. The revive will keep Genetics alive, but Kyrmi doesn't get enough follow-up damage after 3 ultimates. Or I should say 4 expended from the Valkyries to try and get the pick onto Genetics. But one big ult out of himself and some follow-up from the Kings, make sure the support gets out. And I thought maybe for a moment Kings were going to start rallying around the Gold Fury. Instead, it's on towards CaptainTwig. Quick cleanse out of BigManTingz, gets the jungler out. And Kyrmi once again living with the tiniest fraction of HP.
Yeah, Kyrmi lucky that it's not a crusher pickup for BigManTingz just yet, so he does survive that small exchange. Benny lost both relics earlier. Is it going to cost him?
Ultimate used. Variety throws the horse back, but the damage return out of Aquarius is enough to at least make it a 1-for-1. Now BigManTingz stuck in the middle of 2. The cleanse early, the Aegis as well will just deter some damage. And a new 3 versus 3 pops up around. But the Camelot Kings aren't concerned with the fight anymore. They're going to steal away yet another Scorpion.
Yeah, we'll be taking that global golden experience and we'll be bringing it home to the bank. I like that play, though, from the Camelot Kings. Variety right to make the decision to chase out on a Benny. I suppose just does not have vision, realizing that Aqua is so nearby. But Benny utilizing both beads and Aegis simultaneously from the initiation of CaptainTwig earlier kind of screams to me that he's a little bit nervous. You don't need to utilize both up against Nemesis. Her hard CC doesn't exist. Oxymoron when you say Nemesis hard CC. So had he just used Aegis, maybe he's surviving that trade or at least returning a little bit more damage. I'm thinking he could have only just used one or the other. Now for 70 seconds, he's likely going to have that exact same play tossed his way. If Variety sees him, chase him down. If Twig sees him, chase him down. You got a whole minute to play around while this immobile Hunter, who's got no CC immunity in the kit, has got nothing as far as defensive relics.
Kyrmi trying to play up aggressive, maybe into King's territory. Does spot Genetics out. And that's been Kyrmi's primary target this game, has been Genetics on this Khepri, trying to make sure to bait these Scarabs' blessings out, and he's gotten them out every single time. The only problem is that there just hasn't been any follow-up to get the kill after those Scarabs' blessings go through. We saw in that last skirmish, Kyrmi maybe a little bit early on that first ability to try and land the kill on Genetics. Too many to rally back around. And just as you said, Mip, no beads, no ages. Free target for Variety in the Camelot Kings.
Just so dangerous to be an AMC in that situation. Variety, phenomenal rotation. Make sure that with a 20-second window, he's there on time. And the Camelot Kings take fights only to get themselves something afterward. Gold Fury available. No AMC on the map for 30. Camelot Kings are going to take the largest neutral objective so far of the match and the largest lead in one fell swoop. Valhalla Valkyries are doing a good job, though. This is not the Valhalla Valkyries of old. Considering how much has gone to the Camelot Kings so far, 3 Greater Scorpion Steals, Pyromancer, and Gold Fury, this gold lead has been mitigated very, very well. But we are starting to get to that point where those alarm bells, I'm hovering over them. You know, I'm right on top of that button, might slam it down. Another 1,000 gold, I'm ringing the bell. Because the Valhalla Valkyries, although they do have a good team fight, it's not as if the Camelot Kings have got a poor one. And even if it is slightly favored to the Valhalla Valkyries, I'm not saying that it is, that gold lead that is starting to establish should be enough to shore it up. So I like this play. Take something proactively. Get ahead of the Kings.
Variety is here. Steal potential on the Lancelot. Throws the horse, gets hit by the ult from Kyrmi. Variety not going to be able to get in there and grab that one away. So the Valkyries can find some of that free gold on the map for themselves. Didn't cost them too much to do so. And BennyQ should have both of his relics up by the time the next team fight goes around. But we saw what happens once the B ends up losing those relics in the midst of in the fight. Does the Camelot Kings just try and bait those out once again and just make BennyQ the easy target?
I mean, of course you want to dive onto the AMC, right? I mean, that's just the standard play style. Get on top of that damage dealer, that primary damage dealer of the Valhalla Valkyries. One of the best win conditions from the team fight is to utilize this double hunter composition off the back of Stinger's defense shred. Kill him immediately or at least force out those relics, and you do open yourself up to those opportunities. But the Camelot Kings draft is not so one note that they have to play around that. I think they've got good tools to deal with Wowy, or if they so choose, play a defensive King protection style composition. Just have BigManTingz stack up with Netrioid, protect that backline. Once Netrioid starts rotating these team fights, he might be able to do it all on his own. This Freya has been farming up very, very easily. About a 1-level lead on Wowy, but 2 rings finished. Typhon's Fang as well. That's a whole lot of lifesteal, power, and penetration. With Shell as the secondary relic pickup, tells me the Netrioid's got one thing on his mind. I want to be survivable, but I never want to stop my DPS.
We're looking at kind of relics picked up. We've been seeing a lot of the sprint come out. We've been seeing a lot of bracers. Haven't been seeing a whole lot of sunders up until just recently, though, Mip. As it is that splash sunder picked up. Variety, he gets thrown back. We'll use the ultimate to disengage. Camelot Kings not wanting to take the fight, but the Valkyries do want to take the fight. Sprint popped by the solo laner to try and get in there. But it's just going to get them up to enemy territory. They'll steal away the Greater Scorpion. And everybody except for Gamma will start to disengage. Gamma goes in, and Gamma will immediately realize that he's the only one up there and back away.
Yeah, that was an interesting decision from the Valhalla Valkyries. Heavenly Ford, I suppose, if they can catch anyone straggling, would have been able to force that fight. Greater Scorpion as the fallback. Not too bad. Fortunately for the Valkyries, Netrioid stopped to collect a whole lot of farm on the way. Unfortunately for the Valkyries, Netrioid got a whole lot of farm, but had he been there, that team fight may have gone south very quickly. We're starting to approach that portion of the match where both of these teams have got the damage output to start dealing with that Fire Giant. I don't think either one so confident in their lead that they'll just pull it in the face of the other. So, which one of these compositions has got easier pick targets? Almost always you're favoring Serqet in that situation, but considering who the targets are, sure, Serqet's got better individual ganks than Nemesis, the CC lockdown, the true damage, the not damage, the increased mobility. But BigManTingz is 2 levels up and has death immunity in his kit, whereas CaptainTwig just needs to get through those defensive relics of BennyQ. So if I had to hedge my bets, I'm thinking the Camelot Kings will either look towards Aqua or Benny and then immediately start to fall back towards that Fire Giant, or alternatively, 50 seconds away from Gold Fury respawning, pretty easy POI to force a fight.
Camelot Kings with the Fury down. Not a whole lot of fighting to be had on this side. Kyrmi tries to pop the bubble around Genetics belt. Will be just off the mark with that taunt. A fight over the Oracle Harpies, getting some vision for the next objective could be big, and finding a pick could be even better. Bubble gone by Genetics, and Taurus from the mid lane will get some good damage, and Netrioid will get the killing blow. BennyQ in danger, Aegis and Beads and Stinger down, and so will go the B. The Camelot Kings find a double kill for their hunter.
Man, that was not a real threat for Variety just riding along next to Benny. That was Fugazi as it gets, man. But he's still just scary enough to force out both those defensive relics yet again. 150 seconds in sync. I'm thinking Variety is going to do it to him again once he respawns. Camelot Kings may have started the fight around the Oracles, but it was always over. The Fire Giant, now the Valhalla Valkyries. Best of luck. You going to let this one go for free? I don't think you can.
Where's has ult? Kyrmi has ult. So some threat from the Valkyries, and they'll recognize this on the Kings and go immediately for both of those threat, but a 3-man waxing moon from Aquarius will stop that one dead in its tracks. For the Camelot Kings, now with that long-range utility gone, the threat around the Fire Giant has been diminished a bit, but they're not willing to stick around for the objective.
Yeah, Benny already on the respawn. Great play from Aqua. 3-second stun on his Genetics. My man had time to tab out and change his music track before he got back in there and unstunned. So, the Valkyries, namely Aquarius, do enough to keep that Fire Giant alive for just another moment, but gold lead still significantly extended in favor of the Camelot Kings and could go even further. Force the exact same fight all over again. We're going to group up on the Oni Fury. Lesser risk if we lose out on this one. Show up, we'll take the fight. Don't show up, we'll take the objective. And that lead goes in their favor even further. Pyromancer has the respawns from the Valhalla Valkyries, but it won't be easy.
Only 2 of them there this time, and the one man on the horse, as you see, Variety, is enough to threaten them to kind of go back and forth on this Pyromancer. No commit from the Valkyries, but that's because now all of the Camelot Kings are at this objective. Pyro will instead go to the Kings. Variety will back up with the rest of the team. And Miff, we're starting to approach this 7,000 plus gold lead for the Camelot Kings. But Kyrmi is still willing to put that fight in.
He is. Dangerous play, though. Not a whole lot of damage. Benny can't say the same. Plenty of damage tossed towards him. How does he even find himself in that spot? He's on top. My man looked like a Pyromancer. He was cosplaying, standing exactly where it was. His team nowhere nearby to help him. No relics up for half a minute. Benny, interesting decision making. I thought maybe he got plucked in by Genetics, but crazy that he gets caught out there. 30 seconds to think about how it happened to him as the Camelot Kings can start to work their way back towards that Fire Giant and force yet another engagement. Aqua's going to have to step up once more for his team if he wants him off.
Fire Giant started. Whereas in the lane, though, Kyrmi is in the jungle on his way. By the time Kyrmi and Aqua could even get near the pit, the Fire Giant is done. Aquarius has that ultimate still. We'll hold on to it for the next team fight to come through.
Time to ride.
Kyrmi's ult down for a few more seconds. Fire Giant on all 5 of the Camelot Kings. With tier 1 towers gone in both mid and right, they can start their push to start stripping away these tier 2s.
And it's just free gold on the map, man. Nobody nearby from the Valhalla Valkyries to even slow down this push. This is a tough situation to be put in as the Valkyries. This composition, not exactly the best on base defense. Best tool they've got is Aqua's ultimate. Once that's expended, you need a kill, you need to win the team fight, because that's your AoE CC follow-up off of Gammas. That's the bulk of your AoE damage as well. The Camelot Kings, they've got the ability, if they so choose, to just slowly pepper damage into these structures. Pseudo double hunter composition, 1 physical, 1 magical, very good in those situations. So I'm thinking the Valhalla Valkyries will likely go for an all-in initiation. Once the Camelot Kings walk into an actual Phoenix, or even potentially one of these tier 2s, expect to see the Valhalla Valkyries fully commit with both Gamma and Aqua acting as the core of the dive. Camelot Kings' job is simple. Survive that first fight and just win the war of attrition by rote. You've got mega lifesteal on Netrioid and Variety. You've got plenty of healing just from the Fire Giant. BigManTingz give a little bit over with that passive as well. The Camelot Kings, if they could just make the fight go long, they're going to win because they have more resources.
The Valkyries will kind of split themselves up a little bit. putting majority of their group in mid, though, to defend what I imagine would be a tier 2 tower push by the Kings. But even the Kings will split themselves up a little bit on the map. CaptainTwig making his rotation towards mid, kind of even up this grouping. But they left Netrioid by himself in the left, and Netrioid not the best god in the game to try and be that lone split pusher for his team.
I
Freya
don't know about
not
that. I mean, it's not the best, but like,
I mean,
that's still pretty good.
I mean, it is a level 25 slot Freya. It could be a level 25 slot Chiron to do so, but instead it's all about the fight. Variety dives in and finds 2 on the dismount, but he'll just be thrown back and continue to bat at the team, but he's not getting any healing back, and neither is Kyrmi, as Netrioid has already found a double kill in the fight. Gamma picks up 2, but they're going to be beads instantly to get themselves out. The Camelot Kings have found 3 picks as Netrioid finds a whoop and finds the blow up onto Wowy. Only BennyQ and Gamma left alive to defend against the Phoenix, and they're not even going to get an opportunity to do so. The Camelot Kings have taken the tier 2. They'll take 3 lives and a Phoenix.
The Valkyries looked like they wanted to actually put up a fight there, but the second Variety got into that back line, it was panic sirens for the Valkyries. Complete retreat. Triple root from Variety into the Netrioid, picking up a triple kill immediately afterward. No damage returned to the Freya. The Valhalla Valkyries have got to deal with them because he's autoing for 600 right now. You don't really want that hitting your carries too consistently. The Camelot Kings, though, won't approach the base. They had a good deal of time to play with. Instead, keep it slow, keep it disciplined, no risk. Every single tower taken out, fall back, Primal Fury on the respawn. Might as well grab that one and expand our coffers just a little bit further. The Camelot Kings, they're leaving no stone unturned. 15,000 up, and with Fire Giant on 4, 3 dead from the Valhalla Valkyries, you would be hard-pressed to find another team in the world that isn't going for an immediate end right there. Instead, the Camelot Kings say, if we don't make a mistake, there's really no reason to rush it. We can just go ahead, take our time.
Kyrmi is trying to force something on the right side. Not going to find anything with riding CaptainTwig. Will be Primal Fury taken. Pyromancer going to respawn momentarily. With 2 of the Kings standing by, it's not something the Valkyries are really going to be able to take for themselves. While a few of the members of the Kings went over and took everything out of the left side jungle, took the Primal Fury. We saw CaptainTwig taking everything out of the right side of the jungle, at least for the time being. So for the Valkyries, Myth, you're talking about their Phoenix defense isn't the greatest in the world. Is this an opportunity or a moment, at least, for the Valhalla Valkyries? And you're down this far. Your Phoenix is down on the right side. Fire Giant's coming up. If you're the Valkyries, are you just putting up kind of your final stand at fire at this point?
I'm thinking you're taking a fight anywhere that isn't in your own base, because it is so easy for the Camelot Kings to win when it is a 5-on-5 stack in that aggressive, simplified position. So instead, jungle Hail Mary could go pretty well. These more narrow corridors and the jungle pathing would really, really favor Aqua on this Chang'e. Can find multi-ban ultimates with a little bit more ease. But the thing is, Aqua, let's say Aqua hits all 5. The majority of them just have beads still, and we haven't seen too much threat on those beads. So you need Gamma to go in first. And here's the thing about Gamma. He's got 3 items, and only one of them is like a true defense item. I suppose the upgraded starter, as long as no allies are nearby, you get a good deal of defense from that as well. I don't know. Concerned. No blink initiation either from Gamma means that he's just going to have to walk his way in there. You don't want to have to walk forward through a double hunter composition. But I think he has to. Difficult task for him, but someone's got to get rid of these beads and expose a win condition in the team fight, and it might just have to be him.
Zoning by Variety and Genetics. Not even a chance to get to the Fire Giant. The Camelot Kings grab that one with 0 contest. Variety dismounts off the horse by tossing it out. The Camelot Kings can push up with this minion wave they've already got near the Phoenix on the right side. Fire minions moving into the left side of the map.
It's 20K.
And we're at not even 30 minutes of play. They're going pretty fast, to say the very least, for the Camelot Kings. Maybe this Phoenix fight will also go quickly. CaptainTwig in the mid lane, so it's a 4 versus 4 on the right side. The Camelot Kings still playing patient.
Add 1 more 0 to the gold lead of the Camelot Kings, and you've got the prize pool for this tournament. And clearly, the Kings have got dollar signs on the mind. They want to make sure they're the ones taking it home with them. The Valhalla Valkyries have still got the ability to maintain the base. Left side Phoenix respawning very shortly. but someone's going to have to make that rotation. Plenty of enhanced minion waves stepping up.
Variety undeterred, dives under the tower. Wowy, no beads. Variety, hardly any health. The Stinger and the Scarab's Blessing thrown onto him. Netrioid, with the help of the snipes from his mid laner, finds one, but
Okay.
Aquarius finds three with the ultimate, kills one at the
Okay.
same time, and BigManTingz will go down as Gamma in the back line. Netrioid bursts it away, and the Valhalla Valkyries are the ones. They lose their Phoenix, but they take down three of the Kings and slow them down.
I wonder, had the Kings played it a little bit slower, they're winning left side Phoenix just off PvE. It's Variety who steps up a bit too far in that exchange, gets dropped low, wants to reset with the Scarab's Blessing, then realizes he's just a little too tanky to stand in Honey and have it do it for him. So Scarab's Blessing, just about no value. Variety not allowed to create space. Netrioid, sure, puts out some damage, but once he lands from the Valkyrie's discretion, finally the Valhalla Valkyries are in a position to actually punish him for it. But when you've got a lead like this and you've been controlling the map state for so long as the Camelot Kings have, what are the Valhalla Valkyries going to do in this situation? A tier 1, a tier 2, you've exposed a bird, center Phoenix should be pretty easy to clear out if you can win another team fight like you just did. I think the major win here for the Valkyries is just getting that left side Phoenix back and available. Right side Phoenix, pretty easy to defend once you're on top of that Fire Giant as well. But the Camelot Kings so far ahead still. I don't think they're too concerned about it.
BennyQ Aegis, BennyQ Beads, and BennyQ Life gone during the fight. CaptainTwig finds a solo pick, 32 minutes in the game, but he's gonna get picked himself. There are three of the Valkyries, and he will go down with the help of Aquarius. Kyrmi picked up, Kyrmi able to dash away, but that damage from Chiron doing a lot to the jungler. Aquarius low, and Variety will continue to bat away. Up in the sky is Netrioid. Aquarius immune down a couple of shots, but there's still a couple of more available for Netrioid. Gamma picked up, and as soon as he lands down, he's met by the Camelot Kings, but has that jump to get away. Mid-Phoenix instead, the target for the Kings, until they realize they might just be able to go for the end because they've got the minion wave. Game number one, the best efforts of the Valkyries on the right side were good, but not good enough. The Camelot Kings in 33 will take game number one.
CaptainTwig really just caught the Valhalla Valkyries lacking in the jungle there. Benny yet again isolated in that red buff without his defensive relics. What can he do up against the Nemesis? Just about nothing. Clean pick for Twig. Sure, he trades out his life, but he baits the entirety of the Valhalla Valkyries out of their zone of safety. No longer are you 10 feet away from your fountain. You're fighting us in neutral territory. And the Camelot Kings, what was it? We'll call it still 20,000 up at the end there. They love fights in the neutral territory. Clean smite from the top seed.
Silver linings where they lie, at least for the Valkyries. First 10 or so minutes of the game, keeping even or even ahead of the Camelot Kings, where typically that's the area where the Camelot Kings do tend to shine. They get those one picks, and then it's 1 to 2,000 gold going beyond there. Not quite enough from the Valkyries when it came to the late game. Can they change that up for game number two? We'll find out right after this break.
Today's forecast, a lot of sunshine, blue skies, marine clouds. Just a perfect day to go outside and relax. That's your forecast. We'll be right back.
Yeah, sunny days, sunny days, sunny days. No clouds in the sky, about to get away. Feels like it's been a freaking decade. Sorry, don't call me, cause I'm gonna be on break. Sunny day, make way. All the stress and doubt, yeah, not today. Feels like it's been a freaking decade. Sorry, don't call me, cause I'm gonna be on break. Got the Tropicana, fresh cut sushi on a platter. Brandy, honey, it don't matter, shots. Till I trap, gonna be 24/7, golden hour like a boss. And they say, yo, guess you got a 2 o'clock appointment for a champagne shot roll, yeah. I'm busy trying to take it higher, got no time for never, only spending cheddar. Wish I could do this forever. Chilling with the hottest company, they all wanna welcome me to their private penthouse suite. Yeah, now I got the key. Rooftop pool, got a heli on speed. Ocean view from the highest peak. I'm complete, oh, I want this to stay. Please don't go away. Yeah. Sunny days, sunny days, sunny days. No clouds in the sky, about to get away. Feels like it's been a freaking decade. Sorry, don't call me, cause I'm gonna be on break. Sunny days, sunny to this party, don't want no drama with any bad karma. Got a lot of that in La Vida Loca, just wanna let it all go. Yeah, I can't say no when I'm this free. Don't wanna go home, oh I can't sleep. Weather's so nice, only got good vibes. Yeah, we here chillin', chillin' in paradise. Sunny days, sunny days. No clouds in the sky, about to get away. Feels like it's been a freaking decade. Sorry, don't call me, cause I'm gonna be on break. Sunny day, make way. All the stress and doubt, yeah, not today. Feels like it's been a freaking decade. Sorry, don't call me, cause I'm gonna be on break. Sunny days, sunny days, sunny days. No clouds in the sky, about to get away. Feels like it's been a freaking decade. Sorry, don't call me, cause I'm gonna be on break. Sunny day, make way. All the stress and doubt, yeah, not today. Feels like it's been a freaking decade. Sorry, don't call me, cause I'm gonna be on break.
And it is a game number one over to the Camelot Kings. The Valhalla Valkyries weathered the storm for about 18 minutes. I was so close in my prediction. I said, look, doesn't matter anyway. We're going to be 20 minutes in with 1 kill, and it's going to be 5,000 gold in the lead for the Kings. We were 20 minutes in with 4 kills and 4,000 gold in the lead for the Kings. What I'm trying to say is the Camelot Kings play their brand of SMITE here in game number one, and the Valhalla Valkyries just couldn't step up, not only in the early game, but later on in the game. Didn't fare much better either. And Spooky, you know, so much discussion has been had about, like, what can you do to beat the Kings? And it feels like the answer is always, well, you can try to smack them in the mouth early, right? W key down, try to get them scrappy and win those fights early, get a gold lead that way. Or you can also delay till the late game and hope that you just team fight better. Unfortunately for the Valks, neither of those things happened here in game one.
No, there was some attempt at early aggression coming out from Kyrmi. We saw him go in quite frequently.
Yes, we did.
But the problem was the draft that the Valks had was very single target oriented. Right? You've got 2 hunters, you've got your AMC with the stinger, you've got your Sundering Spear. All of that damage is going onto one single target. And who do the Kings have to answer that perfectly but this Khepri?
Right.
Any damage you put onto that target is not going to matter. It's just get the Scarab's Blessing, they come back. The Valks just took their time a little bit too long. This Netrioid Freya got online, wasn't put under any pressure in the early game, and really I think if you're wanting to put the Kings under pressure in the early, you have to look at that dual lane before Netrioid starts walking around picking up triple kills like that.
Yeah, there's some type of poetic justice with a Valkyrie's discretion just beating down the Valkyries here in game number 1. Rest of the Kings look good too. There were some, like, the Kings are a team that will, even in a win, as dominating as this game was, you know, it was like a 19,000, 20,000 gold lead by the time the game was over. Even in a game that clean, the Kings are a team that will always be hypercritical of themselves, and they'll say, well, Variety overextended a couple of times, gave the Valkyries a Phoenix defense. So as far as the Kings being critical on themselves, there are moments where in a perfectly clean game of Smite, maybe you're not dropping that right side Phoenix Siege, but to 99.9% of other Smite players, that's about as perfect of a game as you can get from the Camelot Kings. And so ultimately the question now becomes, if you're the Valks, would you maybe need to, I was going to say, reassess your draft strategy? I mean, the Khepri, to your point, is really what limited so much of that early game pressure. Are you of the camp that would love to just run it down against the Kings early, or do you think that you would have your team waiting to scrap a bit later on in the game?
I don't think you can afford to wait to fight the Kings. I do think you have to answer them with early aggression. But the key point is where you bring that early aggression, right? It's not going to work if you're just trying to gank Variety over in the right lane. He's going to go ahead and just farm up and be safe. You can't let them keep having these objectives. So many objectives went the way of the Kings without any kind of answer.
Right, you need to be able to contest objectives against the Camelot Kings, whether that is buff camps, whether that is Scorpions, Pyromancers, Furies, all the way up to the Fire Giant, because the Camelot Kings will take one by one by one by one, slowly away, and then by the time you get to teamfight phase, you're just so far behind in gold that you can't really contest. Camelot Kings do not want to play against this Cabrakan. Back-to-back games now, Cabrakan receives a ban. 100% banned this weekend against the Valkyries, so something there, and I think Gamma really looks good on the Cabrakan, and that's probably what most teams do not want to play against. And AMC now taken away, so BennyQ will have to play something a bit different here in game number 2. And it looked good. I mean, in the moments, it looked good in comparison to how a lot of the rest of that game looked. I mean, still looked not great overall, but there was still damage coming out of BennyQ later on, and maybe the biggest threat from the Valhalla Valkyries now banned out.
Yeah, the biggest problem with that AMC was there just wasn't really any safety there for BennyQ on that Muzen Cobb. As soon as Variety started leaving that soul lane, the Lancelot just walks up next to him on a horse to say, hey, what are you going to do about it? And really the answer is nothing. There's nothing that BennyQ can do at that point. Gamma was not going to be able to peel him away on the Xing Tian. That's just not the way it works. If they don't want to ban this Lancelot away, which frankly I think they should take the Lancelot away from Variety. He looks way too good on it to let him run that back. Maybe look at something with some walls. Cabrakan's banned away. Maybe a Ymir would help out with that.
Yeah, definitely ways to zone out around that playstyle. The Morrigan, banned out by the Camelot Kings. Yeah, I wonder, I don't know if the Kings would, are they first picking Lancelot? I guess they could.
They could.
But still a lot available. Remember, ADCs were prioritized a bit. Cupid ended up getting banned out in game number 1. So that left Wowy having to play something a bit different, and the Xbalanque just wasn't able to scale up in the same way that the Freya was. There's still a lot available, though, Spooky, going into the first round of picks.
Look, if I'm the Valkyries right now, I'm banning Khepri away in this last pick here. Otherwise, the Kings will just first pick that, in my opinion. I think that's the best one that they could go for. Sure, there's the good hunters up, but both Chernobog and Cupid are available. You're only going to be seeing one of those on a team, usually. You could throw Chernobog into the mid, but most of the time is going to be in that ADC role. So go for one of these high-value supports. I really think that Khepri run back would be massive for the Kings. Alternatively, Lancelot is available, but it is Cupid that gets first picked by the Kings.
And Cupid's strong enough, maybe, that the Kings are still prioritizing that over the Chernobog. Valkyries now on the flip side may be smart to identify that Khepri as an option because, again, looked great for teams not only earlier on this week but just in the previous game. And so now, I mean, if you really want the Chernobog, you're probably picking it, but before the second wave of bans, the Valhalla Valkyries. Otherwise, the Camelot Kings have a pretty easy ban for themselves. Don't necessarily need to take it in the top 2 here unless you think the Kings are going to double pick, as you have already pointed out, Spooky. But man, already into bank time. Thinking long and hard about the way they want to start off this draft. Could go some aggression for Kyrmi. Still a lot of junglers available. Daji did not get banned out. That's a notable standout here. Plenty of options for the Valks.
Daji Khepri would look pretty nice for the
Yeah.
Valkyries right now. But then, you know, there's still that question of, do you want to try to take the Lancelot away from Variety
Also the
before
Lancelot,
that they have the chance to pick it for themselves?
I
They
love
didn't
watching them fight over
prioritize it
me.
in their first 3 last time.
Do not fear this
Discordia and
bastard,
Osiris
Oh
are
for
the
2.
picks here. 0
Wow.
for 2. But, I mean, these are still good picks,
They
right?
are.
Discordia has been one of the top mid laners in recent days. Osiris, we've already talked about Kyrmi loving
use
this
your
particular
powers
pick,
against
being able to
you.
run at the enemy and get that early aggression going online. And we've talked a little bit how that is one of the methods of trying to deal with the Kings. Try to get active. If you can get the Discordia passive onto Osiris in the jungle, that could feel pretty good.
I figured that was gonna. I mean, after the Nem gets locked in, you gotta just assume that
Oh, yeah.
that it's gonna be a Khepri, right? I mean, so the Valks get Discordia Osiris, which to your point are 2 very good picks, but in exchange you've given up Nemesis and Khepri to the Camelot Kings, and Nem is something that Twig has looked great on. Genetics fantastic on the Khepri in the past, and can often counter out a lot of what Nemesis wants to do. And Ymir, so there you go. We finally grab one. The Khepri does get picked, but a bit later on than we figured. Ends up being Ymir. Do you think that limits now what the Camelot Kings are looking at in their last couple of picks?
I think the Kings feel comfortable enough with themselves and with their gameplay that they'll still probably go ahead and do their own thing here. I don't think they're going to reevaluate their game plan based solely on this Ymir. But I do think that Khepri has a little bit less value than it did in game number 1. It still has tons of value, don't get me wrong. But now that the Valkyries have a little bit more area damage, they have AoE as opposed to that high single target damage comp that they had previously, I still think this Lancelot looks good on Variety just because of how well he's played it so far. But now the Valks have some ways to try to mitigate that a little bit more. The problem is Kings, they're up 1 game in a best of 3. They have some room to fiddle around and play with things if they want to.
What do you think, Spooky? Is game number 1 the most important in a best of 5, or is this best of 5? So best of 3,
Best of 5.
Best of 5. Do you think game 1 or game 2 is the most important?
I think game 2 is more important.
That's what I'm talking about, and I'm only asking you because Myth is right behind me. We've all agreed game 1 is most important in a best of 3. I only ask because Myth is behind me and very on edge about this topic specifically. Game 1 in this set, though, goes over to the Camelot Kings. The most important, and the Lancelot plus King Arthur will not be able to be played by the Kings. Both end up being banned away. That leaves open the Kokulin. Gives Aquarius the ability to be aggressive and maybe find some pressure over in the solo lane.
Yeah, this is a nice little switch up for Aquarius. Before, he was on the Chang'e. You're not able to find quite as much pressure. You're mostly just trying to sustain and stick around in that lane and try to limit the other laner's ability to rotate out. This will give Aquarius the ability to actually take the fight to the Variety in this matchup, and I think that's going to be integral in kind of limiting what he can do. However, there's still some good solo laners up for the Kings. Notably, Ratatoskr has been one that we've seen quite frequently. And sure, you know, you're going against Kokulin, but if you have a semi-global ultimate on your solo laner, the bully is not going to be stopping your rotations too much.
You call it. Ratatoskr ends up getting picked here. Looks like that'll be Variety's pick for game number 2. And then Merlin for the mid lane. I don't know. It feels like the Kings got exactly what they wanted in picks and bans for game 2. I mean, Valkyries do as well in the sense that Discordia and Osiris not contested. Ymir, Kokulin. But if through the X's and O's of picks and bans, Cupid, Nem, Khepri, Rat, Merlin end up being the 5 for the Kings, I think the Kings are feeling okay.
Oh, they're feeling pretty great, especially if you look at what they're up against. Gamma on this Ymir is kind of a sitting duck when it comes to Cupid Nemesis. Drop the Fields of Love. He has no way to get out of that. Even if he has beads available, he doesn't have any movement options to push himself away from that giant area damage. Nemesis is just going to shred those prots down. I think Gamma is going to be a big priority target in this early
Come into
game.
my range if you want
Artemis
to be a
now
pincushion.
picked
Oh,
for the
boy.
Valhalla Valkyries.
Oh, wow.
Was that a happy oh boy, a nervous oh boy? What are the emotions behind the oh boy there when the Artemis gets locked in?
That's not what I expect to see when I'm looking at Cupid and Nemesis on the other side there. I mean, well, he's played it before.
Yeah.
He's looked pretty good on it.
Yeah.
And it does have a nice answer to the Fields of Love. Drop the Caledonian Boar.
Sure.
Tusky will charge Cupid, stun him out. You get to run forward. But at the same time, it suffers the same problems that Ymir has. No true mobility options. It's going to be very, very easy for this Cupid and Nemesis to lock Wowy down on this Artemis. And you add in the Khepri too, right? There's so much CC here that Wowy's going to have to be worried about. I'm just not sure if it's going to get all the way there.
Yeah, you need to survive the laning phase, and we know that the Kings like to play aggressive. Netrioid is maybe one of the most aggressive ADCs that we've got in the league, as far as sees a 1v1, tries to take a 1v1, even the 2v2 in lane, absolutely an option for the Camelot Kings. Let's look at the jungle, though. Nemesis up against Osiris, pacing-wise. Osiris likes to get active early, Nem can as well. Do you think it's up to the junglers to really set the pace here in the first 10 minutes of this game?
I think 9 times out of 10 is going to be up to the
Sure.
junglers to set the pace of the game at this level, especially when you have these early game junglers like Osiris. Kyrmi, he's not going to be quiet in this jungle. We already saw him try to get very active on that Serqet. Didn't really pan out the way he wanted to. Well, Osiris is a little bit more W key than the Serqet was.
Yeah.
Sure, he doesn't have the same CC. He's not able to pull those targets back. But the chain slows that come through from this Osiris, probably paired with a Mannequin Scepter in this early game, he's definitely taking the fight.
Well, we know that the Camelot Kings love those early objectives as well. And you've got a Merlin, so you're going to get plenty of objective burn. And one of the big question marks for us going into picks and bans for Game 2 was, can the Valkyries draft a comp that can contest those early objectives? Do you think the Valkyries have a composition that allows them to step forward around the early Pyromancers, around the early Gold Furies, maybe even pull them themselves?
Definitely. I mean, you have Gamma now on this Ymir. He's going to be able to blink in, go into the ultimate, drop those shards of ice. That's already a pretty good contest tool, but most notably is going to be able to contest against Fields of Love. The team as a whole is going to have to be very, very wary of Netrioid on this Cupid and dropping those Fields of Love on the objectives, because once that happens, you can't really step forward very easily. Gamma doesn't have that problem. He's got CC immunity in the ultimate. He can be the initiator to get that ball rolling.
I feel like checkbox number one, and this is not just the Valhalla Valkyries, but anyone going against the Camelot Kings has got to be, don't be behind by 5,000 gold at 20 minutes after we and the Kings have really not done much, or we really have not done much on the map. We have got to limit the gold that we are falling behind to the Camelot Kings because they are simply just too active. So if we were able to check that box, say we're going even 20 minutes, we start to reach that team fighting phase. We know what this Ratatosker wants to do, Fields of Love, Merlin, all of that. We know what the Kings want to do. And so come team fight time, are you still worried about the same lack of mobility, things like that from the Valhalla Valkyries, or do you think as a 5-man unit, this Valkyries comp might fare a bit better than it did in Game 1?
Okay. All of this is according to plan. I still think this goes to 3 games.
That's
So,
right.
Kings get game number 1.
That's right.
Valks are coming back in game number 2. You've got now Aquarius on Colin. He can be the initiator. He can go in and force out those Fields of Love. If you can do that, if you can force Cupid to drop the ultimate on your front line instead of on your immobile back line, you're looking beautiful. Now with BennyQ on this Discordia, they've got so much more area damage. They're going to be able to throw the Apple of Discord. You only have to hit 1 target with that. That's going to force all of the Kings to either spread out or take a bunch of damage they don't want to take. And that's where things are going to look really good for the Valks.
All right, I'm gonna put you on a bet here. I want you to set the odds. Over under. How many apples hit a Ymir wall this game? Its own Ymir wall. Do you think it happens at least once?
It's got to happen at least once. I mean, it's got to happen at least once.
All right, so
that's prime Smite.
The line is set at 1, that a Ymir wall blocks our own Apple of Discord. But you're full on that the Valhalla Valkyries can still push this 1 to 3. Look, I agreed. Coming in, it's hard, because I agreed in the sense that I think the Valkyries were playing, and maybe still are playing, good enough Smite to be very competitive. But going against the Kings, just the way that seeding worked out, top seed in the SPL and bottom seed of the SPL meet in this group, it was always going to be an uphill punch for the Valkyries,
sure.
right, going up against the Camelot Kings. And it takes every team in the league's best brand of Smite to compete against this King squad. And so I'm wondering if the Valks have that in their wheelhouse now, not only just to bounce back, but to really take it to the Camelot Kings. And I think this Ratatosker may end up being very dynamic as well, because you've talked about the Cucullin and Aquarius and now his ability to be more aggressive, to initiate further, really play that warrior play style that Aquarius likes to play. How worried are you about matching the rotation potential, though, of this Ratatosker?
So that's always one of the things you have to be concerned about. If Aquarius can find himself a nice lead in this solo lane, I don't think you have to be super worried about it. And he's on a god that can facilitate that. Kekolan can absolutely take the fight to this Ratatoskr, try to put him behind, open up some invade possibilities, and put him down in XP a little bit. If that happens, the rotations from Variety are not going to be as strong as they were if they were going to be on even footing or ahead. I think if you can find that success, maybe get Kyrmi active a little bit on that right side to facilitate that, Variety might not be too much of an issue in this early game. Now, come the late game, when come those team fights, you're going to have to be very, very concerned about through the Cosmos just dropping down on your back line. Beautiful thing is, though, you've got Gamma on the Ymir. Ratatoskr drops down, just freeze him. Just freeze him, put a wall in his face, and that's about it.
Well, we've talked the X's and O's about as much as we can. The Camelot Kings would love to move themselves into next week. Can they get it done in Game 2? We'll go down to J-Mac and Mifflin to find out.
Thank you so much, Dave and Spooky. Going back in and got to hash in the point, Mifflin's the #1 Camelot Kings up a game over the #8 Valhalla Valkyries. And if you go back maybe 2 or 3 weeks, this is a match that a lot of people are potentially just writing off. You know, Camelot Kings, unstoppable Valhalla Valkyries, can't find their wins. But it's been an uphill climb for the Valkyries. Ever since week 7 of the SPL, they found a 2-1 over the Oni Warriors, then found a 2-0 over the Leviathans, then started their tournament out with a 2-0 as well. They're going to need that 2-1 turnaround like they had against the Warriors if they want to take on the Camelot Kings, and we're going to need to see the best iteration of the Valhalla Valkyries to do so in this game.
Yeah, I mean, the Kings have clearly come into tournament week with a great mentality. That first game was just so clinical through and through. I would argue, though, the Valhalla Valkyries have got themselves a really good composition at dealing with individual pieces of the Camelot Kings. Gamma on this Ymir. I mean, that wall, it can be just cataclysmic in some of these jungle team fights. Variety, Twig, Netrioid, Genetics, none of those really have a great way to deal with it outside of some Phantom Shells, which might be why we see Genetics going towards Shell in that first slot. Otherwise, Wowy should be able to hold his own against one of the most aggressive Hunter players and gods in the league right now. Cupid's Fields of Love just doesn't work against Artemis. Full stop. Don't even need to dedicate your ultimate. Vengeful Assault, the second ability, cleanses slows and gives over slow immunity for about a full second, I believe. So walk your way out of there. Maybe you can turn around the exchange immediately afterward. Otherwise, Kyrmi gets hyper aggressive in the early game regardless of his pick, so why not pick him something that's real good at it? This Osiris with Mannequins, I'm thinking has got some pretty decent targets as well. That's not to say that the Camelot Kings haven't got great tools to deal with that early. I think the first hurdle for the Camelot Kings is just getting to level 5. Once Genetics has Scarab's Blessing, I mean, it is just so difficult to catch the Kings slipping.
It seems that the Kings have maybe recognized that their 2v2 in solo lane isn't going to go very well, which is where a majority of pressure has been going in this last... I keep saying these last couple of weeks, but it feels like it's been going on for well over a month now, where jungler rotates to solo, they fight over Totem of Coup, and then the junglers start making rotation out, but CaptainTwig didn't even go towards that side of the map. Instead, they went with the speed to red start, then straight into the lane, where the Valkyries went with what we're more accustomed to at this point.
I mean, let's just talk about it, right? Rat and Nem versus Kekolan and Osiris.
Yeah, I'm not fighting that.
Yeah, I'll let the Kekolan and Osiris do just about whatever they want on that side of the map. Variety, once he gets a couple of levels, starts to finish up that Soul Eater, finish up that Acorn, then you can start making rotations over there, or probably won't even need to. Has really good tools to just deal with this Kekolan on his own. Otherwise, I think it's going to be a good long while until CaptainTwig really wants to fight Kyrmi. Once you finish up Stone Cutting, or maybe we see that standard burst-style Nemesis build, get a little bit of defense as well, then maybe you want a 1v1 up against Kyrmi, but Osiris so good against these other auto attackers. Tether, giving over 30% mitigations, just makes it so difficult to ever want to fight this Osiris.
Don't want to square off against that warrior early on. I will drag the Heart Bomb away so that way it doesn't affect the minion wave, but still the minion pressure now goes to the Camelot Kings. It was in favor of Gamma and Wowy earlier on, but just being able to fight back the Camelot Kings to get some more establishment in that dual lane. Slightly different start between the mid laners, both of them going for their Sands of Time. But for BennyQ going towards the Warlock Staff, the more common start that's gone today, BigManTingz starting to what appears to be Book of Thoth right away.
Yeah, large infusion of mana, a little bit more power, especially around these neutral objectives. I think it makes sense for the Merlin. Maybe we see the Camelot Kings try and really leverage that objective burn early on, finish up that Book of Thoth, finish up those stacks, and then maybe you're looking towards that Pyromancer. immediately afterward, whereas BennyQ prioritizing more so a little bit of that survivability in lane.
Stun and ult onto Aquarius. Kyrmi is nearby, and Aquarius will just get his transformation and be completely fine. A little bit used on a commit towards the solo laner. Tether and a root is good on CaptainTwig. Another root from the ultimate. CaptainTwig is low. One more shot will do it. And Kyrmi comes up with first blood. Variety in the sky. I'm not sure he wants to commit to diving on to 2. Instead, he'll go back in the tower, and first blood goes to the Valks.
Great reinitiation from Aqua there, realizing, hey, if I could just get up there and connect this root, it's over for CaptainTwig, and he was right to do so. Blink initiation from Kyrmi, well placed. I thought Twig would have been okay had the dashes available. I think even had the opportunity to use Blink, but decides against it himself. So the Valhalla Valkyries, with their superior 2v2 in solo, win the 2v2 in solo. Twig really, really wanted to rotate through and make that fight happen around the Totem of Ku, but Aqua, too clean on that rage stack up, was just ready for that initiation. And once he transforms, gets that HP shield, gets that dash available, you really don't want to fight up against a Cullen this early on in that stance, especially now that he's being able to double dip on his defense. Sovereignty, very effective against both Twig and Variety. If Variety wants to kill him, he's going to need Twig, though. That defense shred from Nemesis Ultimate should help out, but not so much that I think if I'm Twig, I'm rotating the solo.
So in that regard, then, for CaptainTwig, going to the solo lane almost seems like just something you don't even want to deal with at this point. So for CaptainTwig, does he then try and put some pressure maybe in towards this dual lane or maybe even on towards BennyQ in the mid?
I would love to see Twig just like run down Gamma. Ymir in the early game, one of the best answers you can have to it is just get on top of him, right? But with the Heavenly Sprint in first slot, maybe it makes it a little bit more difficult. Hard CC really only coming from genetics in that lane, confirmably, like, you know, reassurably. Otherwise, Heart Bomb, I suppose, as long as you've got it full stack, could make it a little bit difficult for Gamma to survive some of these exchanges. Maybe if I'm Twig, I'm just kind of waiting it out, opportunistic style. Hey, all right, Heavenly Sprint's down, I'm there. Or, hey, he just uses transformation over in the soul lane a little bit early, teleport's expended as well, maybe you rotate here. Otherwise, I wouldn't say that there's a clear, definitive answer for CaptainTwig in the jungle.
For now, it might just be the classic King style of play then. Wait for 15 to 20 minutes before they really get active in any of these one given lanes. Just let CaptainTwig get that farm up. Genetics is stuck in this lane for a long time without going back to base. You look at the opposition, Gamma's already gone back, bought a full mail of renewal, and now we'll finally see Genetics make his way back to the base to get his first major purchase. It will be Gauntlet of Thebes for the support. So not going for this kind of new age. This mail of renewal just kind of popped up out of nowhere in week 8 of the SPL, and it's been sticking around even through Masters. We'll see if the 2v1 will be good for the Camelot Kings against Kyrmi. Aquarius nowhere to be seen just yet. He will make it in one more hit. And CaptainTwig finds Kyrmi the first kill for the Camelot Kings. Variety dunks in on towards 2. The sprint has been popped by Gamma, and the wall is going to make sure that Apple does not get the proper bounce back through. But it wasn't Gamma's wall that bounced off. It was that jungle wall. Camelot Kings come up with their first kill.
Yeah, Gamma was in some trouble there. If not for the rotation from Benny, I think we would have seen the Camelot Kings chase out very, very aggressively. The timing, though, of Variety's ultimate was just perfect. Twig uses the second part of his dash to avoid the slow from Gamma. Think maybe, all right, well, Kyrmi's going to reinitiate, or maybe we'll have Aqua chase him out, knock up on a 2 from Variety, just make sure that there really was no chase down potential, and Twig walks himself out of there very, very easily. I'm thinking now you can start making some of those rotations back towards the soul lane. Soul Eater finished up for Variety. You're already finishing Golden Blade, starting to move into what I'm assuming is Executioner for CaptainTwig. And Aqua has shown that, sure, he's tanky, but he's also very willing to use that Salmon Leap aggressively, and without it, how you really escaping from all these slows.
And kind of talking about that Executioner, when the new glyphs kind of came up, we were seeing a lot of these junglers, these auto-attack-centrics one, the Osirises, the Erlongs, the Nemesis, go towards that heavy Executioner in that slot. Obviously, you're going to lose out on some of that attack speed late game whenever you do hit the cap. But getting that extra bit of pen from there, it kind of seemed to be the game plan for the Kings. Do you think CaptainTwig does something similar in this game?
I think he could. The thought process behind Executioner, although it sounds incredibly simple, might just be, hey, is my build going to be more than 1.75? If yes, no heavy. If no, yeah, let me pick up heavy Executioner. That said, Heavy Executioner is such a strong item. 35% penetration, and all you have to do is land 2 auto attacks. Just 2.
Pretty good.
That's an auto plus an auto cancel.
I can hit that many.
Yeah, Twig could do it instantly by using his 3. I'm thinking Heavy Executioner might just be real good on Nemesis.
See if he goes that way. BigManTingz switches over to the ice stance, trying to get some extra poke on Benny. Does miss that Frostbolt, at least for the time. And then seems that the mid-meta of item establishment is get your stacking, get your big power item on, and then Staff of Mirrodin immediately after to change that item, removing the cooldown but giving you that extra burst of power. Seems to be real enticing for so many of these mid laners nowadays. Even we've been seeing it sometimes pop up on these mages that go over towards the Soul lane. Haven't quite seen on the Guardians that pop over there just yet, but seems to be at least to be a potent item for the mid laners.
Twig in some trouble. Kyrmi looking to get aggressive, but it's the Camelot Kings looking to turn it around.
Gamma pulled in, surrounded by 3 ball. Variety is zoning 3 of the Valkyries. The Golden Apple not going to find a home, and Variety waiting for a landing spot. They'll be back towards the Greater Scorpion, where Netrioid has rotated over towards the mid lane just in case a fight was going to break out. Still a few seconds away until the Pyromancer comes up. The Camelot Kings, they get their prize of the Scorpion, and they also pull the sprint away from Gamma.
Wow, able to push an entire wave into that tower. I'm keeping my eyes on it. Netrioid already missed out on 2 minions. Make that 3, 4, 5.
Oh.
Seems he's not going to get any of those. So Wowy going to have a pretty significant advantage in golden experience for at least a little while. But I think that Staff of Mirrodin is a good topic of conversation, because when you want to get the full value of this item, you have to initiate the fight with your ultimate. You want to start off so you're getting the full value of that passive throughout the entire course of the engagement. But on gods like Discordia, where the CC immunity of your ultimate is so important to your team fight, generally you want to hold on to your ultimate a little bit longer. Okay, I'm poking from a range, Unruly Magic, Strife. Oh, they're finally towards me in the backline. Let me drop my ult so I'm not getting CC lockdown. Well, you're missing out on some value if you're holding on to it for that long.
Pyromancer started by the Valks. Variety's here to try and slow it down. But the Valkyries get the Pyro, and maybe they can get a kill. No, Variety's got his dash. He'll be fine. But the Camelot Kings, ever the present with the macro farm in their map play. When the Pyromancer goes one way with 4 people on the right, 4 will go to the left side, and the Camelot Kings trade objective for objective. And that'll give them at least a little bit of gold, but the gold lead is actually for the Valkyries. Maybe the Kings can close that one up. Wowy uses the beads, ultimate by CaptainTwig, and no ult available to him means that the Hunter for the Valkyries go down.
Yeah, I missed it. I didn't even realize Wowy's ultimate was down already. Had he still had access to it, could have potentially turned around the kill into CaptainTwig. No CC immunity for this Nemesis just yet, but instead, I suppose, probably forced to in the 1v1 earlier on. So the Camelot Kings get Gold Fury and 1 in trade for Pyromancer. A value trade, to be certain, for the Camelot Kings, but the Valkyries doing a very good job on map and farming up, have created a bit of a buffer for themselves.
BigManTingz under fire, but now Kyrmi is the one in danger. Golden Apple hits CaptainTwig, and that's a lot of burst damage on the Nemesis. That wall has not gone anywhere for a while. But with that Scarab's Blessing, no real threat on the CaptainTwig's life. He'll live out. Variety gets his blue buff. Aquarius with that transformation, not quite enough damage to get the kill or to get the buff steal. So the Camelot Kings, few players make it out with thin margins.
Help me out here, Doug. I think Gamma might have fully maxed the wall already. Curious to see how many levels he's gotten. That one has done so, and then goes into the freeze in the next slot. This is Facilitator Ymir. Won't catch me doing this in any of my matches. I like having damage personally, but Gamma will find value from that wall. We broke it down a little bit earlier. 4 members of the Camelot Kings, no answer to it just yet, and no Phantom Shell for genetics just yet. Means that he's still, Gamma that is, going to find value from these walls in the team fight. Only downside being is that the majority of the time Ymir gets value from wall in jungle fights, and as of now, 12.5 minutes into the game, nothing to really fight over in the jungle. Both Pyromancer and Gold Fury removed from the map. No stranger to Greater Scorpion fights are either of these teams, especially so far in this set, so could potentially find an opportunity there. But I really do like that wherewithal from Gamma. It says, hey, this is probably my best ability in the game right now. Might as well max that one out first.
We see just how destructive it can be against a god like Nemesis, who can't go around the wall, who doesn't have access to be able to get past
Or Rad, or Khepri, or Cupid.
only BigManTingz gonna be able to get past. And that's assuming he's got his flicker. CaptainTwig doesn't have either. He's able to get around the tiniest margin of the wall there. Ultimate from Kyrmi to try and disengage, but BigManTingz just waiting for him on landing. Golden Apple does some damage, but BennyQ not able to get into the midst of this fight and really get that damage out. Camelot Kings grab their 3rd kill of the game.
Yeah, I think Kyrmi kind of lost a game of chicken there. He had positioned himself against that wall where CaptainTwig would not have been able to escape, but instead presses his S key and in backing up gives CaptainTwig over that escape path. Maybe he was in the Phantom form and realized that, you know, the spacing didn't matter either way.
Whoa, Variety does not make it up.
This dude's
into
trolling.
the tree.
Did you see where that was?
What? Yeah, I was just about to say, why is he even at the enemy gateway
He
at
wanted
this
to
point of the
solo
game?
Wowy. That's what it was. He wanted to catch Wowy on the rotation on a base, or maybe he was looking for Benny. But both Wowy and Benny have both their relics available, and Wowy had his ultimate there too. That was a incredibly high-risk play for relatively low reward. Let's say, hypothetically, Variety gets the kill on the Wowy. That's all he gets. He backs up, steals a green buff. There's no Fury here. There's no Pyromancer on the map. There's no reason to be doing that. It seems like Variety's a bit overconfident right now.
Just wanted to flex a little bit, you know, see if he can find a kill all on his own.
Yeah, he pulled a muscle doing it.
Yeah, unfortunately, he tripped and fell on the way to the gate. And now it's an extra kill up for the Valhalla Valkyries, one onto Wowy, who not necessarily needed that extra little bit of help, but Netrioid was catching up in the XP after that rotation from earlier on in the game. But the Valkyries still maintaining that 1K gold lead. They've been holding on to the lead all 15 minutes of this game. Even despite First Blood going to the Camelot Kings, they weren't able to pull it away. You can see the spike up at the very least for the Kings earlier on. But the Valkyries are doing a good job of maintaining this kind of even pacing. But maintaining as you start going into the late game is exactly where the Camelot Kings want to be.
Yeah, they've got really good team fight on both sides. I'm not certain that I would favor one too heavily over the other, so I think you got to have the discussion of which one's easier to play. The fallback conversation that I love to go towards, especially in these high-stakes events. And I'd argue the Camelot Kings comp, probably just a whole lot easier to play because the Valhalla Valkyries draft really contingent on one player and one player in particular in these late-game fights. It's Gamma. If the walls are good, the fight looks good. If the wall is bad, that's all.
Aquarius not able to steal Pyro. Oni Fury started. And a field to love by Netrioid. Oni Fury will be pulled back with Gamma. And the dive in the backline by Variety. This Gold Fury putting in a lot. The Camelot Kings steal the Oni away. And they'll be able to make out as quickly as they can. I say that, but CaptainTwig went back into the fight, and Wowy gets burned away by BigManTingz and Twig. But a massive freeze from Gamma turns this fight around, maybe in favor of the Valhalla Valkyries. Kyrmi finds one, Aqua gets another, and Genetics will at least be able to get a pick onto Kyrmi, but Genetics and BigManTingz both very healthy in the fight. The Valhalla Valkyries have at least made a nice even trade out in kills.
Aqua still has some chase potential. Ultimate is up too, but won't dedicate it. Maybe onto Genetics here. Nobody nearby to follow up. Gotta give credit to Gamma though, man. That wall, so good in that Oracle pit. The 4-man, I believe, freeze as well. That was a complete loss for the Valhalla Valkyries. That finds a little bit of oomph towards the tail end, a little bit of mustard on that exchange. But to break it down completely, even kill trade, both objectives to the Camelot Kings. What was a 1,000 gold lead going into that exchange has immediately been cut. Experience was always in favor of the Order, but now the gold joins them as well. The Kings, I'd argue, a bit lucky around that gold Fury. That was a complete coin toss through and through. Look it up in the dictionary. You'll find a link to the VOD of this match and that exact timestamp. But at the end of the day, when the coin tosses keep landing in favor of the Camelot Kings, how lucky really is it?
You gotta imagine they got the ultimate Luckster on their side at this point in time. The Camelot Kings have regained the momentum of this matchup. Sure, they've been getting the kills, but the Valkyries have been holding on to the farm, at least up until now. So with that, the Camelot Kings being able to grab that back, where do they start to establish that pressure through? I mean, with both the objectives down for at least another 3 minutes, Fire Giant probably not under the eye of anybody at this point in time. Do the Camelot Kings just kind of bide their time, Mifflin, and wait for one of those objectives to come back before a new fight?
Yeah, I don't think the Kings are a team that are going to be like, all right, we're bored. Let's go rush down a tower. If anything, maybe we see him group significantly to seal away a Greater Scorpion. Maybe like a red buff or a blue buff invade, see whether or not the Valhalla Valkyries are willing to defend there. Otherwise, we're a couple of minutes, a couple of items away as well until I think the Kings are going to be really confident in their ability to look towards the Fire Giant. So instead, bide your time. Wait it out. Get on top of this Pyromancer. Now that the objectives have been desynced, you don't have to worry about an immediate trade from the Valhalla Valkyries. Just got to be on time for that first rotation.
The Valkyries will pressure out the tier 1 in solo lane. Variety going to lose out on his tower, though we're getting to the point of the game where that tower not nearly as important for the team so long as those tier 2s are still standing and that tier 1 in mid lane. Trebuchet is in the right side for the Camelot Kings. We'll see if they like to push that one up at some point. For now, to push in towards the mid tier 1 of the Valhalla Valkyries. All 5 of the Kings are here. Golden Apple will hit BigManTingz. It does some decent damage. That's a big team fighting ultimate expended from BennyQ to keep them off this tier 1.
Yeah, loses access to his Mirrodin passive as well, so BennyQ losing out on a whole lot there. The Camelot Kings, though, of course, I said it earlier, they're not going to say, all right, well, that's one thing down. Let's go ahead and get in there. It's, all right, we got that. Maybe we could find a little bit more on the map. Oh, wait, our buffs are up. Let's go clear that out. That's a whole lot of golden experience. Need to be ready for the team fight once the objective starts up. All the Camelot Kings do by stepping up to that tower is control the spacing of the Valhalla Valkyries. The Valkyries are forced to group up. They can't farm up when the Camelot Kings are generating threat on map. So you force the Valkyries to group. You just heat check them. If they don't show up, you get the tower and it's free, of course. But once they do, the Kings say, all right, fair enough. Fair play. We're done here. And they back themselves up.
Now will be a return to farm for both. Tier 1 tower did take quite a bit of damage in mid. So one more grouping like that from the Kings could spell the end of the structure for the mid laner of the Valkyries. Left side tier 1 tower is already gone though. Wowy losing out on that little bit of safety. But our supports, at least for now, going in the same style of build, slightly different order as far as the Mail of Renewal and Gauntlet of Thieves are concerned. And both of them going into this Magi's Blessing, this Magi's Cloak, has just kind of become a staple for so many of the gods on the map. Supports and junglers pick this up consistently.
Yeah, Magi's is just really, really good. It was always just one buff away from being top of the meta, and now that it's got some glyphs, it's there. It's top of the meta.
Kyrmi, half health. Aquarius, nice and tanky, as they're just ending up against this Trebuchet. The Camelot Kings have pushed up the right lane, so not going to get anything there. Pyromancer has just respawned, which means the Gold Fury a few seconds away as well. And the Valkyries want to try and get some pressure so they can go for one of these objectives. But with Kyrmi half HP, he's not going to be as effective come one of these fights. Aquarius will go back, teleport available, and Pyromancer started by the Kings.
And the Valhalla Valkyries are grouped on this side of the map. Aqua, if he wants to get involved, going to have to teleport his way in there. Unfortunate back timing, but he's got the pincer.
Genetics pulls Gamma in. Aquarius finds 2 in the backline with the knockup, but Gamma only gets the beats from Netrioid off that freeze. And Variety, the one low, does get the Scarab's Blessing to bail him out for now, but how far can the Ratatosker go? Kyrmi does blink in, but doesn't get the damage. Dunks in onto 2 in the backline, but it's Kyrmi who also loses a chunk of his HP. The Camelot Kings have backed themselves to the tower.
Gamma just too far away to get the value walls that his team needs. He was torn between, do I want to initiate with my squad or I want to peel out in the back line? Because Variety was doing a whole lot all the way in the back. Wowy had to force his ultimate out there. Doesn't quite connect with that Caledonian boar, and Variety is able to survive. Pyromancer to the Camelot Kings, but it cost them pretty heavily. Relic Roundup, not much left unless you're BigManTingz, in which case you've got just about everything. But what are the Valkyries up to? They've got a ward here. They know the Kings are on it.
BigManTingz has that Mirrodin passive, so one transformation could get that extra burn for the fire. Gamma and Aquarius go in. Double ultimate from Aquarius is good, but Gamma's the one who's low. Variety finds the first kill of the fight up into the sky to zone away the carries of the Valkyries, and maybe just waiting for his team to join him in this fight. He'll crash down into Aquarius, get the war cry out. But half HP on a couple of members of the Valks means that they're not going to want to stick around, and Kyrmi might not get the option to get out of this fight. Use the ultimate, just as the moment he gets it back to get away from the Kings.
Man, BigManTingz is doing way too much in these exchanges. Somebody has got to get to this Merlin. The damage output that I just saw, it was a 3-man pull-in, as well as just 3-man burst in that arcane stance. Wowy, you're pretty far up for being all alone.
Beads are gone and used the boar way too late. Some decent CC out of BennyQ, but the Camelot Kings have found yet another pick in this fight, and they can go right back to the Fire Giant. Keep repeating this. They've got the hearts from Netrioid to stay sustained up, but Aquarius and BennyQ are right back to it. Aquarius ultimate up just now, but can he even get into the Fire Giant pit at this point to try and stop it? BigManTingz and CaptainTwig are the zone. Variety is soloing BennyQ in the back line, and Aquarius goes down. Up in the sky is the Ratatosker, and down should fall the Fire Giant. The Kings are taking a while to grab it, but Kyrmi can't even get to the pit to stop it.
Yeah, Kyrmi, no ultimate, might be forced to use it just as it comes up exactly in the same spot. Great wall from Gamma, should keep him alive, but that's all it's gonna do. Fire Giant on 5, and the Camelot Kings surge forward.
Gamma slowed down, does not have the sprints available, but doesn't need it this time around. Fire Giant on all 5 of the Kings, and at a tier 2 tower to sprinkle some more gold into their pockets, and they can go right to the Gold Fury. A perfect disengage now for the Camelot Kings. After this long, drawn-out tango at the Fire Giant, they're able to pull it through.
Yeah, I'm not even sure I'd call it like a Fire Giant dance. The Camelot Kings were just breakdancing on the Valhalla Valkyries. Hey, we're pulling the Fire Giant, you know, the parang right there. And then the Valkyries walk in, immediately step forward. Well, what's that dance fight move called? Capoeira? That's what the Camelot Kings were doing to the Valhalla Valkyries, who were just trying to find equilibrium and were at no point allowed to do so. Now the Valhalla Valkyries find themselves in a very, very difficult position, a position nobody in the entirety of SMITE competitive wants to be put in. The Camelot Kings have got every bit of the lead, experience and gold. Fire Giant on all 5, and a bit of map state still left to collect gold from. Tier 1 and 2 on the right-hand side, Tier 2 on left. The Camelot Kings have also got themselves a pretty nasty siege composition. Valhalla Valkyries, on the other hand, very defensive draft here. Gamma going to be pretty decent at slowing down objective DPS. Toss a wall in front of the Phoenix. That's 7 seconds. You don't need to worry about it. BennyQ, constant DPS, constant damage output, and Unruly Magic, deceptively very good at keeping blinks on cooldown. That damage just spreads throughout the entirety of the backline. Might catch the Camelot Kings unaware. My only concern, though, is how the damage output looks from the Valhalla Valkyries. Is Aqua allowed to step up into that backline? Can Kyrmi survive long enough to go chop chop? I'm not so certain. The Camelot Kings, they can play it slow. They've got healing, they've got fire, and they've got time.
3-2 split by both the teams. Bubble actually burned off of Genetics on that left side. I think that was BennyQ who was able to grab that one off of decent range. The Camelot Kings are slow burning this. They're not trying to jump in aggressively. They're not doing anything crazy, just waiting for those minion waves to show up. They've now split 3 over towards the mid instead. And maybe they can find some good damage up against Benny and Aquarius. BigManTingz on this Merlin, continuing to go unchecked in the fight. Golden Apple hits BigManTingz yet again, but there's the hearts from Netrioid to mitigate every bit of damage that was just thrown at him.
Yeah, Benny's thinking to himself, man, kind of wish I had Divine Ruin, because that's a 40-second cooldown, and Tings is looking at me full HP and full mana. Now you've lost your Golden Apple, the bulk of your AoE damage. You've also lost your Muzen proc, and the Camelot Kings don't seem like they've lost any momentum.
Ultimate from CaptainTwig on Kyrmi, half HP on the Osiris and no HP on the Phoenix. Aquarius goes in, a wall from Gamma to zone a couple out, but Aquarius and Variety is in danger, but Scarab's Blessing, there's no Phoenix there, Variety, for it to bring you back to life. And the Valhalla Valkyries certainly don't want to break that one down. With the mid-Phoenix gone, the Camelot Kings can regroup and rally back around.
Yeah, I wonder, are they going to go for this left side Phoenix? It's going to take a long while for Variety to fully resustain himself. Does have Soul Eater and does have a Cupid, so maybe could just start to work his way over. But instead, Netrioid, Pyromancer, that's where he's at. Maybe a tier 1 and 2 immediately afterward. If the Valhalla Valkyries have a good read on map state right now, could send one over and try and catch him out. Instead, though, it's not going to be a tower push from Netrioid. Instead, Reset, Greater Scorpion, only 10 seconds left on the Fire Giant, now off. Let's go ahead and regroup, and the Camelot Kings, might as well just be their credo. Rinse, repeat. Let's do it all again. No panic enders here. We want every single Fire Giant and every single bit of advantage we can get before we start to break that base. Fortunately for them, base is already broken. Mid Phoenix, sure, maybe not the most valuable to take down, certainly the most difficult to take down, but the Valhalla Valkyries should be able to defend these waves and get in towards that Fire Giant.
It is 30 seconds till Fire's back up. For now, a little bit of a push by CaptainTwig to take out the Tier 1 in Soul Lane. Tier 2, the last tower remaining on the map for the Valkyries to hold on to. The mid Phoenix down means the minions are going to start pouring their way through. Because it is mid, they're close enough to Fire. And the Camelot Kings, they are not going immediately to the Fire Giant pit. Sure, it hasn't spawned in just yet, but they're pushed up very far for a zone on the Valkyries.
I mean, last time the Valhalla Valkyries had walked in and essentially died one by one, so the Camelot Kings looking to reprise that exact same performance. Though this time the Valkyries playing with a bit more discipline, further back and grouped up. So the Camelot Kings realize only one way to force it forward, and it's to generate threat.
Alrighty, hit by the apple.
That bounce.
Was good, not enough damage though from BennyQ. So a disengage for the Ratatosker, and now the Valkyries, having only used one ult versus two, have some advantage around this Fire Giant. A Variety can make his way back to base if he's got the gold for the teleport. He can come all the way back to the pit, but just goes to the mid tier 1 and resets as if nothing ever happened.
The Camelot Kings playing on top of wards here. The Valhalla Valkyries control the pit itself, so they realize Kings aren't actually threatening the fire.
Fields of Love will get the ult from Gamma. Variety will continue chasing out a few. Tusky rips through the back line. CaptainTwig low, a push in from Aqua, but a revive from Genetics just in time. But BigManTingz needs the help. No, it's Kyrmi who needs help as Variety and Netrioid bat away at the last of his health bar. Wall stops the dash in from Netrioid. And Wowy is just punching autos back, but now he's the one in danger as Variety and the double assassins of the Camelot Kings close in and find a pick.
Variety hits him with the, hey, you remember me? You're the one that knocked out early on. Now I'm back and with the vengeance. Double dunk and another pickup. Aqua tried to make his way back to base, and he will get there in a body bag. The Camelot Kings looking so fancy. If they weren't there to do it themselves, seems like the minions would have.
Who needs a Fire Giant when you can just kill the entirety of the Valkyries? The mid Phoenix already gone. The Camelot Kings march up the lane. They deicide the Valks, and they take game 2. 30 minutes to do so. And again, the Valkyries starting this game out strong, keeping it even keeping ahead for 15 minutes of the game. But all it takes is one play from the Camelot Kings, one Pyromancer, one Gold Fury stolen away. And from that point on, it was all Camelot Kings.
Yeah, that was the backbreaker, wasn't it? You pick up the Pyro, you regroup on the gold. Sure, it's an even kill trade, but it's not an even objective trade. That Gold Fury went to the Camelot Kings, as did the Pyro, and from there, the momentum just stuck with them. The Valhalla Valkyries, as you said, have been looking a lot better in that early game. Just got to clean up some of those late-game team fights.
Team fighting is kind of where the struggle has been. We've seen the Valkyries be able to build these massive leads up against teams. We saw it against the Leviathans, we saw it against the Oni Warriors, but it's not going to work against the Camelot Kings. They find themselves a 2-0 to start out our day. That's it for me and Mifflin. We'll throw it over back to David Spooky.
We've seen this with the Valhalla Valkyries in the past, where game 1, really rough. Game 2, start to bounce back, find their footing, things get competitive. Unfortunately, fall just a bit short here against the Camelot Kings. So with that, Kings officially make their way into the final bracket here that we've got next week that will kick off. Valhalla Valkyries not dropped out of the tournament just yet. Just got to beat the Eldritch Hounds in a best-of-3 to move themselves on. In Spooky, I think there were glimmers of hopes for the Game 3 set here for the Valhalla Valkyries. They got more active early. They were around the objectives, doing exactly what we figured they needed to do. It slips away from them, and then when the Camelot Kings get ahead, they're just too consistent of a team.
They had it, Dave. They were looking so good. I'll tell you where it all went wrong was around that Oni Fury.
Yeah.
They had the better position on that. They stepped forward when the Fields of Love came down. They didn't keep DPSing it. I don't know how they lost it, but man, you gotta hand it to BMT on this Merlin. That man did so much work. I looked up at the XP chart at one point. He had 700 XP per minute. He was 200 over his lane opponent BennyQ on that disco, and it was just absolutely insane how much value the Kings were just finding across the map.
I think BigManTingz is over the last couple of years consistently one of the best mid laners in the league, if not the best. He should be in the conversation for best mid laner in the league every single time that conversation is had, because BigManTingz transforms the way that the Camelot Kings are able to play the game, whether he is remote, whether he is on ping, or whether he is back in studio. He is just too consistent of a player, and it helps set up for the rest of the team. And such a great look for the Camelot Kings. Move their way into the second round. So the Camelot Kings, you zoom out, their goal obviously to win this event. The conversation around the Kings has always been they are a regular phase team, but they haven't been able to get it done at the actual tournament events. So job number one now done for this team. We've made it through week one. We make it to week two. We've checked that box. And the Kings have done it in very clean fashion. Takes a bit to get going in their first SEC matchup earlier on this weekend. Never really looked back. And the question still remains, like, how do you truly beat this squad? And I'm not sure many teams have an answer to it, because they're dynamic in the way that they draft, dynamic in the way that they play the game. And I think Kings fans should be very confident in their team after they're showing this first week.
Yeah, at this point, you're almost hoping, if you're going against the Kings, you're almost hoping that they start to make mistakes on their end. Because right now, the way they're playing, it's just clinical. They're just doing everything they want to do, and they're doing it perfectly. They're executing their game plan the way they want to play. They're not letting other teams get into their heads. So that's really the first thing you have to look at, is how do you get into the minds of the King? How do you throw them off their groove? But like you said, no team has the answers so far. We've tried early aggression. We've tried just going at them on these objectives, and nothing is working right now.
Well, it's got to be a combination of all of that and then perfect play on your part.
Right.
Because if you can set everything up, but then if you stumble around the Oni Fury, things tend to go towards the Camelot Kings. Camelot Kings find their way to a 2-0 victory here over the Valhalla Valkyries and find their way to the post-game interview.
Yeah, thank you so much. We got Netrioid and Genetics, the dual lane of the Camelot Kings, standing by for our post-game interview. Congrats on your 2-0 win to start things out. Now, tell me about game number 2. You guys are down a little bit to the Valkyries, not much, like 1,000 gold here or there. But you guys get not just a Pyromancer, but a Gold Fury steal immediately after. I mean, what's the comms like for the teams on a steal like that and then the fight after?
So I guess it depends on the game plan. They had a lot of early pressure, so at that point you're just looking to trade the map. And I think Ben and Jordan managed to find, or CaptainTwig and BigMan managed to find a trade on the Pyro, and then me and Royd contested on gold. And they kind of all ended pretty early on, so we just went for it, and then I felt bad for them, so they had to try and risk it.
I pretty much said I'm just going full int mode, and on that gold.
You know, we stole it, and I think the game was won from there, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it seemed to work out well for you guys. And Netro, I mean, talk to me about the dual lane. You guys get Cupid, Khepri, if I'm not mistaken, both games in a row. I mean, when you get into a picks and bans, you get a dual lane like that. Does it just kind of feel like it's game over for them at that point?
Yeah, I mean, first game we got Freya actually instead of Cupid.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I just feel like both gods are just strong enough to be played on dual lane, and I feel like, I don't know, man. I see the other ADCs, and I kind of have like the idea of how they play, what they play, so I'm pretty prepared for that.
Now, we've gotten to see all of the SEC teams play. We've seen a few of them go home. And as we all know, only 8 teams move on into the final week of play. Are there any teams maybe in your mind from the SEC that could have a chance to make it to the second week of play?
No.
No,
I don't think so.
Short
I think
answer.
the Hounds have got the best chance, but I just think there's just a big disparity in gameplay, just in terms of like neutral map farming. Like you can see like from groupings like the Titans and us for Scorpions, you just don't see that from the lower leagues right now. But it depends though, because people pick stuff up over lands, so maybe they do improve, but it's very hard for SML. You know, we've done it before.
Yeah, it's the difference
SML.
too. When LATAM used to have the competitive scene too, we used to have this problem where you could be at the top on the region, but then who do you scream against that is gonna like beat you, or you can like I don't know, learn from, you know. So
you're only as good as the people you play against.
Yeah.
And if they're not as good, then you can't get good.
Well, fair assessment from the Camelot Kings. Congrats on your victory. We'll see you guys later on in week number 2 of the event. Congrats on qualifying. We'll throw it back over to the desk.
Thank you.
Yeah, it would be an upset if the Eldritch Hounds able to beat the Valhalla Valkyries, but that's now the first guaranteed SCC SPL matchup for promotion and knockout that we have got set. Look, the post-game interview there tells us a lot about Netrioid's confidence because, and it's well placed. You get Khepri for Genetics in back-to-back games. You're going to be feeling plenty safe in the dual lane when that's the case. Then gets Freya and Cupid. And I think that also brings us back to picks and bans. I don't think there was a glaring P&B issue from the Valks in this set. It didn't feel like they got like ridiculously outdrafted, but they're in game 2. I remember you and I in Picks and Bans were like, how do the Kings get all of this, right? It just felt like, and then the Khepri drops, the Cupid gets there. It all just looked so good for the Camelot Kings. Valk should still value their chances against the Eldritch Hounds. Got to go into that set with some confidence. All right, so now we've got the first matchup of the day in the books, and the first qualified team from Group A, the Valhalla Valkyries and the Eldritch Hounds, will battle it out tomorrow for one final spot from this group into the elim stage of our tournament. That'll happen next week. Do you favor the Valhalla Valkyries in that matchup?
I mean, they're the ones with the SPL pedigree, right? They've got a little bit more experience. They fight against a little bit better teams. The Hounds, they've looked really good. No discredit to them. But it's like you just heard from Genetics. You're only as good as the people that you scrim against. You got to think that maybe the Valkyries just have a little bit of an edge.
You would think the Valkyries would have an edge going into that one. It's about refooting yourself, feeling confident against a team that you have already beaten earlier on. So our first set of the day, the Camelot Kings 2-0 over the Valhalla Valkyries. Remember, all 3 of the remaining sets are promotion games, not elimination games just yet. So the Bolts versus the Solar Scarabs, Dragons, Oni Warriors, Leviathans, Titans, all will send a team guaranteed to the elimination stage, and then the loser of each of these 3 matchups will face an SCC opponent for one final spot from each of the groups. So Spooky, we've got some star-studded matchups to end out our day here. What catches your eye?
I mean, my mind immediately goes to the Bolts, right? You always like seeing the Bolts play, but if you're looking for the real close matches, Levi's and Titans, that's a great one that you're going to want to keep your eye on. I know I was talking about this set being a 3-game set, but I think we all knew that was a little bit far-fetched. But, man, if you're looking for one, Levi's and Titans, that could go all the way.
Yeah, Leviathans versus Titans, always fun to watch those 2 teams go up against one another. I still think you favor both of those teams to get out of that group. You probably favor all 8, and this is, you know, from Genetics and what we've seen this week. You still probably favor the SPL teams, but upsets have happened. It's happened in the past. Can it happen here this week? We'll have to see which SPL teams drop down, which SPL teams move on, all of that and more as the Olympus Bolts and the Solar Scarabs face off coming up next.